give her another minute here. Okay, 6 o'clock. All right, welcome everybody to our June 1st council meeting, first of 2 this month. We're going to be going over the council rules and procedures again today during this workshop. Let me just do a quick attendance and sound check with everybody. Councilmember Woodruff. Present. Councilmember Follier.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Good afternoon.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Thank you. And just looking to make sure I know Councilmember Langford is out for family time, and looking to see if Councilmember Speavers, if this is him getting ready to try to join us here. No, it's not. Okay. So we'll take the official roll call at 7 o'clock, but we'll note that Councilmember Speavers and Councilmember Langford are not here for the workshop. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
We do have a change in the agenda for the 6 o'clock.
Oh,
We mentioned it now.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
As everybody knows, we had 2 items on the 6 o'clock. It was determined that we'd probably end up spending the majority of the 6 o'clock time on the council rules and procedures. So the recommendation for the council is to move the priorities for 2022 budget to July 6th.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move that on the tracker. All right, thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so we left off at the last workshop. We had gotten through section 4, so we will be starting with section 5. Todd, if you can bring that up, everybody can see it. So we have it on the screen above. So if we'll just go ahead and start like we were before. I'll walk us through each section, and if there's any changes, additions, deletions, just let me know. And I've got 4 council members here and 1 remote, so I'm going to be trying to watch both live and on Zoom for hands, so I have a little bit of patience while I try to figure those out. All right, so section 5, voting and motions. 5.1, voting. Votes during council meetings shall be conducted as follows. Recorded votes occur on ordinances and resolutions. Unless otherwise required by statute, ordinance, or resolution, votes shall be taken by voice, except at the request of the mayor or any council member. A roll call vote shall be recorded by the city clerk. Each council member shall vote on all questions and matters before the council unless a conflict of interest or appearance of fairness disqualifies the member. Is there anything on 5.1 that anybody would like to address? Okay, moving on, page 8. 5.2, mayor shall only vote where there is a tie vote between council members with respect to matters other than the passage of ordinances, grants, or revocation of franchise or license, or any resolution for the payment of money. 5.3, motions. No motion shall be considered or debated until duly seconded and announced by the chair. The motion shall be recorded, and if desired by any council member, it shall be read by the city clerk before it is debated, and by the consent of the council may be withdrawn at any time before the action is taken on the motion. Let's stop there with the first 2. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand, so I'm assuming we're good. 5.4, disqualification. Any council member who is disqualified from voting on a matter shall be excused from the council dais and shall not participate in the debate. The council member shall state the reason for the disqualification. Okay. 5.5, motions to reconsider. A motion to reconsider must be made by a person who voted with the majority on the principal question and must be made at the same or succeeding regular meeting. No motion to reconsider an adopted quasi-judicial written decision shall be entertained after the close of the meeting at which the written findings and decision were adopted. Those are all really more legal type of things. I don't see any reason to change any of those. Doesn't look like you guys do either. All right, number 6, resolutions and ordinances. Yes, sir.
I had a question on a section related to voting.
Yes.
I'd like to have some way, a persistent record of the votes collected.
Okay.
Resolution or ordinance. I think some way to look at in a manifest way, what votes were taken when, and what the votes of the council members were, would be helpful.
Good. So, Ann, I hate to put you on the spot.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so I know on ordinances, I know we have, it's more clear by name, you know, by member who voted which way. I can't remember, are you keeping that for resolutions as well, or just whether it passed or not?
The minutes will always reflect who made the motion and who seconded and who voted in favor or opposed or abstained. So it's always recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
I recognize the value of the minutes for that sort of understanding. But I think a manifest which simply identified the action and the votes would be a helpful record.
I know that was part of the Granicus package we were looking at, Katie. I don't know, this might be a good time to kind of say where we are on that. I know we didn't get it fully implemented because of COVID last year. So can you just touch on that real quick?
So when we purchased the Granicus software product, one of the add-ons, if you will, is the voting package, so that when you vote, it comes up on the screen so the public can actually see who voted how. And as you mentioned, COVID has kind of set us back a little bit, but certainly we are re-energizing that effort, and we will have the voting show up at the meeting. Just a question on the manifest. So it's a visual who voted how, and then the minutes will reflect the written record. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I guess, yeah. What I'd also reflect on is in the past, Anne has worked to retain a record of resolutions and ordinances and the votes of each council member. And that kind of was on and off and wasn't necessarily formally acknowledged as an action. I'd like to see it acknowledged formally as an action. And I don't think it's a technology question either.
Okay.
Just by whatever measure, a spreadsheet would be nice.
Well, why don't we,
There's a voting record for each council person, is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing? Okay.
yeah, by ordinance, by who voted for resolutions and ordinances, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, thank you. I support that, what Dan's talking about there. I've had several residents say there's no one place to go to see how the council members have responded to the different issues over the course of previous years. So is that, Dan, what you're leaning towards? Yeah.
Okay, we can work on that and see what we can put in place.
Thank you.
Nope, let me take that quick action item.
Thank you for the explanation, I wasn't tracking, so this explains what you're looking at.
Well, and I'm wondering, once we do get Granicus on board, if there's some sort of report that we can pull out of that automatically once it's put in place. So we'll see what we can do in the interim, and then how we can use the technology to make it easier. Thanks for bringing that up.
So question, for the council, so do we want to make a note of that and add that to, 5.6? Record keeping for voting members of each council will be kept, or are you just thinking it's a practice not to be included in the policy?
It is a practice. I don't know where else in the, procedures that we have that it could be documented. It seems to be the one instrument we're using as council procedures, so.
We often refer to this to help us remind ourselves what the policies are, so we'll put something together in 5.6.
Well, actually, I'm looking at it, it might be more appropriate under 5.1 voting added as section D.
Okay.
Great. Okay, now we're on to section 6, resolutions and ordinances. Reviewed by city attorney, all resolutions and ordinances shall be reviewed by the city attorney. No ordinance or resolution shall be prepared for presentation to the city council unless requested by the mayor or 3 council members. Any comments, notes on that? Okay. 6.2, procedure. Ordinances shall generally require 2 readings. The first reading will consist of a staff presentation and may include council discussion. The second reading will occur at a subsequent meeting and will involve a motion, second, public comment, council discussion, and vote. Section 6.3, format of ordinances and resolutions shall be in a format determined by the city clerk, including the numerical identification. No ordinance or resolution shall contain more than one subject, which shall clearly be stated in the title. No resolution or ordinance shall be amended unless the amendment sets forth each modified section in full. Resolutions and ordinances shall be signed by the mayor and attested to by the city clerk. City attorney shall sign all resolutions and ordinances to approve the form. Okay. All right, 7, moving right along. Okay, public hearing procedures, 7.1 for sign-in. Prior to the start of a public hearing, the chair may require that all persons wishing to speak sign their name, address, we need to take that out of there, I believe. Name, address, and indicate whether they wish to speak as a proponent, opponent, or from a neutral position. That's not typically something we have followed, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I agree. We have to discuss that and remove the address, but the question has been asked that are they a resident
Yes.
of Newry Lake?
So we will make an edit.
But I think we should have further clarification for discussion in the council on this. Are you a resident of proper Liberty Lake?
The Liberty Lake city limits.
To identify if they're a voting individual or not, or they're a resident of the city.
Agreed. So
Makes
we
sense to
will,
the council?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think, just if you're a resident, it's a sufficient question.
so we will work on the wording for that.
Self-reported.
Now, we don't typically, and this is why it's good to review these on a regular basis when we have public hearings, and not that we have, at least the council, we don't have many people who participate in the public hearings, but now and then we do. We don't necessarily ask if they're going to be speaking as a proponent, opponent, or from a neutral position. So we'll make a note of that going forward. Any person who fails to sign in shall not be permitted to speak until all of those who signed in have given their testimony. The chair may change the order of speakers so that testimony is heard in the most logical groupings, i.e. proponents, opponents, adjacent owners, etc. All good there? Councilmember Follier?
Yeah, thank you. A little, I don't know if this is a good time to ask the question or not, and I really don't have a strong opinion on this, but as we move forward with our council meetings, this whole Zoom meeting concept, I feel like we're able to reach out to more residents, as a way for them to participate or listen to the discussion. So, is it the council's thought that we would continue that, even though we may all be back in the chambers here hopefully very soon, as far as to offer that as a resident service?
Based on the meetings that I've been having with the regional mayors and all of the other entities around that have been dealing with this, it's the general consensus that all of those entities are going to be trying to move ahead with a hybrid type meeting. So we would be here, there could be people in the audience, but we would also be.
So if that's the case, when we have a public hearing, should we include some language that says or sign in by way of
Notification to Todd.
notification, whatever app it is?
Yeah, good point. I actually just made that note as well, so we will work on that clarification. And the question is, how do you tell?
If we have a desire to do that, then we'll move on.
Oh, I think it's imperative that we make an allowance for that, and note how it's gonna be handled, because I think that's just the future of meetings in general, whether it be city government or, or corporations. I think the hybrid meetings are here to stay at this point.
If we could make very clear in the instructions, if you would like to speak at the public hearing and you're attending by Zoom, please indicate your name, whether or not you're a proponent or opponent or neutral, and whether or not you're a city resident.
Yeah. And then get that to Todd. We'll just need to figure out if there are people here in person, who came first. But those are logistics that we can work out. But good point, Councilmember Dunn, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
I'm good.
Okay, great. All right, 7.2, timing, representation. The city council will take public testimony during a public hearing and public comment period and prior to passage of ordinances. Persons appearing before the council should limit their comments to 3 minutes as kept by the city clerk and enforced by the chair. Where an organization is appearing before the city council, it should designate a representative to speak on behalf of its members. I know this is splitting hairs a little bit, but I know at this time Todd is managing the clock. Should we just say the council should limit the person should limit their comments to 3 minutes as kept by who? Staff?
City staff.
Question?
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Should there be some comment in there that it would be displayed? Because when we came up with this, we didn't have all of this now.
Yeah.
The challenge, I think, is in the past, is sometimes we'd have it displayed, other times we wouldn't. When it's displayed, my experience has been that people really are able to stay to the 3 minutes. If not, challenge is who assumes the responsibility to say, that's enough?
Yeah, yeah. So I think if we put it as kept by the city staff and displayed for public view,
Yes.
that should take care of it, and then it's up to the chair, as it says, to make sure that they stay in the limit.
Mayor, I have
Yes.
a question. If we receive a written comment about a public hearing, do you want us to provide copies of the written comment to the council, or do you want us to read it into the record? Something to think about.
Yeah.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If we receive a written comment for the public hearing, do we want it read into the record? Problem is, we get into that 3-minute time limit. Or do we just want it distributed to council and made part of the official
And
record?
acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it and say, comment from so-and-so has been distributed to the city council.
Mayor, I have a thought on that. We have a 3-minute time limit, regardless if they're in person or if they're on Zoom, or if they submit it in writing. So read 3 minutes worth and stop.
Any other comments?
Everybody knows it's a 3-minute period.
I think the written comment by nature is intended to allow an elaboration.
Well, I'm talking about during the public meeting, we can read 3 minutes of their letter, still give us the full document.
Yeah.
But read 3 minutes of it.
How about we, because I would hate, because it, like Dan said, it could be, would be more elaborate. And I would hate for the first 3 minutes being read to have one tone, and then there be something important that the public might want to hear. So maybe leave it, ask the person who submitted it, let them know the parameters, and let them decide if they want it read in the record. Mayor Pro Tem.
Because of the challenge that it obviously creates, we've gone back to the policy that anybody who gives a written record, it would not be read in, it'll be in our packet. So because of that, I'd recommend that we do the same thing here.
Whether it's public comment or a public hearing, you want to treat them the same.
Acknowledge it
Right here.
and make it part of the public record.
But I'm looking for there's a uniformity.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, so any written statements, we're just gonna get in a packet, not be read in?
Well, it'll be acknowledged. We received a comment from so-and-so on X topic, for or against maybe, and then it'll be made part of the public the permanent record available to the public. Work for everybody? Great. Where are we? Okay, public hearing process. The chair introduces the agenda item, opens the public hearing, and announces the following rules of order. Something we have not been doing, I will make a note on that. All comments by proponents, opponents, and or other members of the public shall be made from the podium. Or we'll figure out the wording on that with regards to the hybrid meeting. Any individuals making comments shall first give their name and residency. Again, we'll work on the wording for that. Number 2, no comments shall be made from any other location. Anyone making out-of-order comments shall be subject to removal from the meeting. If you are disabled and require accommodation, please advise the chair. We need to relook at that. Shall be subject to removal from meeting. Make sure we're within our legal bounds. 3, there shall be no demonstrations, i.e. applause, during or at the conclusion of anyone's presentation. 4, these rules are intended to promote an orderly system of holding a public hearing, giving every person an opportunity to be heard, ensuring that no individual is annoyed or embarrassed by exercising his or her right of speech. It's interesting how that's worded. Number 5, council members shall not reply or respond in any way to testimony provided by speakers at the public hearing except to request specific clarification. The chair may call city staff to describe the matter under consideration. The chair calls upon proponents, opponents, and all other individuals who wish to speak regarding the matter under consideration. Mayor Pro
I'll
Tem.
go back to number 5, if
Sure.
possible. Looking at this, I'd recommend council members shall refrain
Okay.
from replying or respond to any written testimony.
Okay.
Describe your utility refrain, Mike. Is it less than not?
Yeah. Not is absolutely not interpreting. Refrain is where adults will use some restraint.
I actually appreciate not in the gesture. I think that it's really important that public comment is not a dialogue. Public comment is not an inquiry. Public comment is just that. And any interaction in that moment that invites not good things.
But we do have the option of asking a question.
Clarification is our word, that's directed. that within that 3 minutes, or does that give them extra time, or?
But it happens all the time. It happens quite often. Somebody will be given testimony or talking, and they will be asked a question. So that does extend the time, it does create some challenges. So I think it's worthy to address that.
And I just think that creating dialogue in this section creates a lot of untoward outcomes. Any invitation or solicitation of a question generally is going to lead to misexpectations.
I can only go on Dan, is that we do this all the time. So either we're going to do it or we don't do it. But right now, we do allow it, because somebody comes in and gives a presentation, comments, and it's really good, it's something they're working on, and council members ask questions.
To do it or not to do it, I guess, it's in our procedure.
Yeah, it does allow, except to request specific clarification, which addresses if the council has a question.
For the pleasure of the council is what we move forward on.
So it sounds like.
Mayor, may I interject?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Sean.
Mike, I think one of the things to keep in mind here with regard to the public hearing process is sometimes if you have a land use decisions that are being made or quasi judicial decisions that are being made on the record, there is no questioning by the council members of citizens or the individuals being making changes, because in that instance, you are making decisions based upon the record, the written record. So I think some of that's being discussed here with regard to number 5 implies that situation. So keep that in mind when you're discussing what you want to do here.
Thanks for your comments.
So your recommendation is to leave it as it is, Sean?
I would say yes, that would be my recommendation given those types of situations.
Got it. Thank you.
Works for me.
Okay. All right, so on to page 10. The chair inquires as to whether any council member has questions to ask the proponents, opponents, speakers, or staff. If any council member has questions, the appropriate individual will be recalled to the podium. So Sean, based on your response to what we just talked about, should we be striking this?
I'm sorry, Mayor, which part, the right after that?
Yeah, so it's right at the top of page 10. The chair inquires as to whether any council member has questions to ask the proponents, opponents, speakers, or staff. If the council member has questions, the appropriate individual will be recalled to the podium.
I think, no, not necessarily. Again, I think not every public hearing is on the record, and we've done that before. For example, tonight with Central Valley School District. I think my point was, with regard to number 5, that if there's specific clarification in those situations, there's not a back and forth in those circumstances. Now, with regard to the second part, there may be situations that do occur that you can have interaction, and I think that's what's intended with the additional language to ask those questions if they're there.
Because we do have a section coming up with regards to the quasi-judicial hearings. And I apologize, Councilmember Severs has joined us, it looks like just by audio, and I missed a chat from Todd Henderson. Hugh, I think you had a comment. I apologize.
I did, but it got clarified. It was back there on number 5. So all good now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, and then the chair continues the public hearing to a time specific or closes the public hearing. 7.4 quasi-judicial hearings. In addition to the rules of order as set forth in section 7.3, the following rules should be observed during a quasi-judicial public hearing. The chair shall announce the matter for consideration and ask council members to indicate any ex parte, oral or written communications with the party, conflicts of interest, or any appearance of fairness issues. After all disclosures are made, the chair will ask if any party to the quasi-judicial matter desires to challenge or request a council member abstain from the decision on the matter. The challenge shall be placed on the record. We don't have many quasi-judicial hearings, but we will know in advance if we do have one. Nope, okay. All right, section 8. Duties and privileges of citizens. 8.1, meeting participation. Citizens are welcome at all council meetings and are encouraged to attend and participate. Recognition of a speaker by the chair is a prerequisite for an orderly and effective meeting. It is expected that all speakers will deliver their comments in a courteous and efficient manner and will speak only to the subject under consideration. Not seeing anybody, okay. 8.2, citizen comments. Under agenda items, citizen comments, citizens may address any item they wish to discuss with the mayor and council by completing and submitting a yellow request to speak form. Again, I've already got a note here to clean that up with regards to hybrid meetings. They shall first obtain recognition by the chair, who shall then allow the comment, subject to a 3-minute limitation per speaker or other limitations as the chair or council may deem necessary. The chair and council will receive comments without reply or discussion unless the chair or council requests clarification. Following such comments, if action is required or has been requested, the chair may place the matter on the current agenda or a future agenda, or refer the matter to staff or a council committee for action or investigation and a report at a future meeting. Comments, concerns?
We no longer have council committees.
Oh, that's true. Matter to staff. Okay, we will strike or a council committee. 8.3, subjects on the current.
Question.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Another thing is, I can remember, this came up a couple of years ago, that maybe consideration is that specifically no election endorsements allowed in public comments.
We'll have to look into how.
This is a good legal question
Yeah, it is.
for an attorney to
Yeah.
answer.
Why I made that note, because I do remember in one of the council meetings a couple of years ago, that came up, there was a discussion, but I don't think we ever did the research or made a decision on something like that.
Okay. We'll check the legalities on that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Sean.
this is actually Hugh.
Oh, sorry, Hugh.
I've got a comment back on 8.1.
Yep.
Am I remembering correctly, council, was there an issue with this in the workshop we did? Sorry, Mike, I'm failing to remember his name. You lined it up, but it seemed like there was a First Amendment rights issue under suggesting that they will speak only to the subject under consideration here, or is that okay in this context?
It was my
I mean,
understanding.
limiting what citizens are allowed to say.
Right. Well, so when we're in public hearing, it's limited to what that public hearing is about, but in general citizen comments, it's clear that they can speak on any topic. Does that help?
Okay, sorry. Yep,
That's okay.
missed that. Yeah.
Mayor, I have
Yes, go ahead, Kate.
just an observation. 8.1 talks about meeting participation, and as you all know, the public is not able to physically attend our meetings right now. Is there a way that we could put a statement that addresses emergencies like we're having now, that says, you know, when there are things beyond our control that prevents the public from physically attending a meeting, we will make the meeting available electronically or, you know, through Zoom or something like that. Just a thought, because 8.1 says that they're welcome to attend and participate.
Right.
And clearly, that's not.
Well, and attend may include, and maybe, you know,
Maybe the attendance may include virtual
Remote,
attendance
yeah.
or something.
yeah, I think that would be easier to manage. Go ahead, Councilmember Follier.
I'd just like to follow up on Hugh's comment. I get what he's saying. In the last line of 8.1, it says, in meeting participation, your answer was related to resolutions and ordinances, but it says speak only to the subject under consideration in the public comments section of the meeting.
Well, so we have, and this can get a little bit screwy, for lack of a better word, because we have 8.1 and then we have 8.2, which is citizen comments. Maybe it's best that we merge those under one.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking.
Yeah. It might be more clear because.
I have seen councils that do take comments on every action that they take. I know citizen participation, they want to speak on such and such a matter, and there is an opportunity for the council for citizens to speak before the council votes. Totally up to you.
Well, let's look into, unless you guys, oh, go ahead, Annie.
I just want to make sure that there's still the opportunity for citizens to bring up something that is not on the agenda, if there's something that they want to forward to us. So if we're looking at combining it, making sure that there's a distinction between citizen comments and then citizen comments subject to the agenda, or even having the opportunity, like Katie's saying, to have citizen comments on each topic. And I don't know what others think about that, but I think we've been talking about how to engage the community, and I want to make sure that we are able to hear from them in the meetings on a variety of topics if we can do that.
Well, I think it's pretty clear on the previous section 7 about how we take comment on public hearing and quasi-judicial hearings. We'll take a look and see, we'll come back with a proposal for 8.1 and 8.2 so it's clear with regards to the citizen comments at the beginning and the end being on any topic.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So maybe the second half of that paragraph, 8.1, where it says it's expected that all speakers will deliver comments and speak only to the subject under consideration, maybe that should be moved up to 7.3.
Okay. We will take a look. It's going to take a bit of massaging on this.
7.3 is more specific in the topic.
Right.
So can I use a hypothetical?
Absolutely.
Let's say the council is going to approve a contract to buy a new police car, and there's someone that has an opinion in our community about that purchase. So they would fill out a yellow card, and they'd say, I want to talk about item 10B4. And then 10B4 comes, the mayor would say, I want to recognize so-and-so who wants to speak about the purchase of a police car. That is sometimes how it's managed, but without having the yellow cards, it's making it a little more challenging.
Yeah.
But if you did want to come to a council meeting, you could fill out a card, your name, are you a resident, and I want to speak on this item, and then the chair could recognize.
Well, I think that's probably a larger question for the council to consider. We have, 2 opportunities at the beginning and the end, and from a citizen standpoint, if I want to talk on something on the action item agenda, I would make my comment at the beginning section. But again, that sounds like a little bit bigger topic for the council to maybe tackle. But we'll come back with some language to make those sections a little bit more clear. Okay, 8.3, subject on this current agenda, pursuant and subject to section 8.2, any member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item on the current agenda shall make such a request to the chair by completing and submitting a request to speak form. Again, we will clean that up given today's environment. Manner of addressing the council, all remarks shall be addressed to the council and not to any individual member. No questions shall be asked of the council members. Okay. All right, 8.5. Oh, go ahead. Hi, Holly. Go ahead.
On 8.4, no questions shall be asked of the council members. Should we also include the mayor in that?
Or chair.
Or chair, sorry, yeah, chair.
Good with that.
Sometimes we've had that happen where questions have been asked specifically to the chair.
Right.
Usually it's the mayor.
Yep. Anybody have any issues with that? We've had that in? Okay, seeing no objections. Thanks for pointing that out. 8.5, written communications. We're on page 11. Interested parties or their authorized representatives may address the council by written communication in regard to any general matter concerning the city. The written communications may be submitted by direct mail or by addressing the communication to the city clerk, who will distribute copies to the council members. The communication will be entered into the record if requested by the party. Again, some cleanup on there and make it a little bit more modern, because it just says by direct mail. We'll need to make that a little bit more modern, and then maybe specify the discussion we had earlier about acknowledging the receipt and put it inclusion into the record if they ask that to be done. Any questions on that section? 8.6, out of order comments. Any person whose comments have been ruled out of order by the chair shall immediately cease and refrain from further improper comments. The refusal of an individual to desist from inappropriate, disparaging, or otherwise disruptive remarks after being ruled out of order by the chair may subject the individual to removal from the council chambers. We'll take another look at that from the legal standpoint based on our recent workshops. Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
I had it from our recent workshops, I had that highlighted, just the last line.
Yeah.
Individual removed from council chambers.
That's my concern as well, so. we will verify the legal issues around that. All right, so section 9, filling council vacancies and selecting mayor pro tem. 9.1, notice of vacancy. If a council vacancy occurs, the council will follow the procedures outlined in RCW 35A.13.020 in order to fill the vacancy with the most qualified person available until an election is held. The council will distribute and publish a notice of the vacancy, the procedure, and deadline for applying for the position. Any changes there? Seems to be working us up till now.
I have a question on
Yes.
that. In order to fill the vacancy with the most qualified person available until an election is held,
Yes.
the next election,
Yeah, so council vacancies, when filled partway through the term, are subject to the next election.
whether it's in cycle with the remaining or not.
The next general, it's every 2 and 4 years, so the next election would be on the odd years.
When we posed that question to the state's, election office and also to Vicki Dalton, their terminology was until they would be appointed until the next general election.
We'll put next general.
Sean and I are gonna follow up to make sure that 1 year or 2 years. So
It should be the next available general election.
we will clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because the way I interpret it is the appointed person is appointed to the position until the next available election for the remainder of that term. So if there's 3 years on the term, like the mayor, she's running,
Right.
and the next available election, regardless of the term limit, how much the term has left on it.
Yeah, and we can pull the RCW that's referenced as well.
So I'm just wondering, would you
Clarify.
spell that
Yeah.
out in that section?
Got it.
Thank you.
And so there may be specific language in the RCW that we can use.
Or maybe it already says it, I'm just.
Yes. Well, it's not the easiest thing for if people are reading this to go back, they get the computer, find the RCW, read through the RCW. If there's things that we can put in here from the RCW, that'll work. 9.2, application procedure. The council will draw up an application form which contains relevant information. The application form will be used in conjunction with an interview of each candidate to aid the council's selection of the new council member. Questions, concerns? Not seeing any. Go on. Interview process. All qualified candidates who submit an application by the deadline will be interviewed by the council during a regular or special council meeting open to the public. The order of the interviews will be determined by drawing names. To promote fairness, applicants will be asked to remain outside the council chambers while other applicants are being interviewed. Applicants may be asked to answer questions submitted to them in advance of the interview and questions posed by each council member during the interview process. The council members will ask the same questions to each candidate. Each candidate will then be allowed 2 minutes for closing statements. I think this last round, I think they were also given time for a quick opening statement. Is that something we want to add at the beginning? Not. Okay, not hearing any. Oh, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I think we have to add some wordage there. In reading this, maybe I'm missing it, is that we can give them the questions beforehand.
We can, we don't have to.
We do not. And what we've been doing in the last 2 times is not give them the questions in advance.
Right. I think that's kind of up to the council. It does say may, so I don't know if you guys want to change that permanently or make it on a case-by-case basis as we go through this. Everybody, go ahead, Councilmember Follier.
To follow up on your question, Mayor, I may be wrong, but I thought our opening exchange was, I'm sorry.
I know we have.
Our opening exchange was to help us narrow the field from 15 to 8. Wasn't that the purpose of the opening statement, and then we went into interviews? No, we didn't. Did we interview all 15 applicants?
Well, yeah, we did. Go ahead, Councilman Woodruff.
Since I was there, yeah, the first night, we all just made an opening statement, there were no questions
That's
asked.
what I thought. Yeah.
I believe it was 5 minutes we reached together, if I recall correctly. And then the second night, after you narrowed down the candidates,
Right.
then you did the interview and we had the closing 2 minutes. So we did have an opening statement, but it was on a separate night. Because because I'm assuming because there were so many candidates, you didn't want to go through the interview process. But that's how it was when I was appointed.
So it was a 5-minute,
5 minutes, I believe is what.
open, yeah, right, that's.
But that was it, there was no questions
There
from
was no-
council,
right.
it was just,
To help us narrow-
and we did
narrow
our
down.
5 minutes and.
I think the actions we took were ad hoc because of the count of people that had. And I think based on reading, I think our actions were still accommodated by what's in this rules.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it worked well, so
Okay.
I mean, I'd be in favor of adopting some, how we did it.
Well, or the
If you can
council.
put it in writing, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe we don't need to put it in writing.
Well, I'd say to Councilmember Dunn's point, you know, this allows for some fluidity based on the situation. Councilmember Kurtz?
And I was just gonna say, I mean, based on what we did, I mean, I think you even just put a line in there that depending on, you know, the number of applicants, more than one round of interviews may be offered or something along those lines. I think there's ways to say it that incorporate what we did, but don't also box us into that. If we have like one applicant or two applicants, I don't know that we want to go through the same process, if that makes sense.
We can, again, we can take another look at it, see what we can do to maybe beef it up a little bit, but not to tie the council's hands going forward. Does that work? All right, section 9.4, selection of council member. The council may recess into executive session to discuss the qualifications of all candidates. Nominations, voting, and selection of a person to fill the vacancy will be conducted during an open public meeting. Number 9.5, duties of Mayor Pro Tem. In the temporary absence of the Mayor Pro Tem shall perform the duties and responsibilities of the Mayor with regard to the conduct of meetings and business of the city. Yes.
I thought about this for a long period of time, as sitting out in the audience and also being on the council. I think we really need to spend some time to have more defined duties of what the Mayor Pro Tem is. For example, now, is it, Mayor Pro Tem, we have a meeting with the mayor, that's once a week, meet with the administrator prior to the meeting, so look at the agenda, signing documents, vouchers, mayor expenses, things of that sort there on it, attending meetings. A lot of the meetings the mayor's not able to attend, that falls upon the Mayor Pro Tem to be able to go to those type of meetings, so that involves the Mayor Pro Tem and the mayors keeping contact back and forth on what their duties are, what they can attend and not attend. There are certain meetings that both mayor and Mayor Pro Tem go to, that happens now, and also dealing with the agenda.
Okay. Comments from council? Go ahead, Mayor. Councilmember Dunn.
In the temporary absence of the mayor, the pro tem shall perform duties. I think it's a pretty good description. I don't necessarily think we need to expand or increase the roles, responsibilities of the mayor pro tem. As much as just recognize the performing action in the absence of the mayor.
Any other comments? Councilmember Dunn.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Hugh.
I just disagree with what Dan said. I think keeping it more simple and for sake of this document should be adequate.
Councilmember Follier.
Just a question on the term temporary, in the temporary absence of the mayor, how long is that?
I don't think we've ever had it more than a meeting or two. Well, obviously, you know, last year was a little bit of an anomaly, but when, say, the mayor's out of town for a conference or family vacation or sick or whatever, it's usually for, you know, a meeting or maybe a few days. But there are specific things that the Mayor Pro Tem does do. You know, I know you sign vouchers and things like that. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
That's where I'm coming from as a recommendation, so that the term is for 2 years, and the idea is to rotate that, or anybody who wants to apply for that. I think it's important they realize what the duties are, just to say that the duties are in the event that the mayor's not around, but what are those duties? Because if you're not involved, or have been involved, you don't know what those duties are. So I think some clarification there. So, and I think what's important is that don't look who is the Mayor Pro Tem. Look at what the job is. Same as with the mayor. In years past, I can remember that who the mayor was kind of determined what rules you wanted. Then another mayor comes in and, well, those rules aren't important anymore. I think it's important that we have dialogue to understand what are the responsibilities. That's why I recommend that.
Well, could you do, sorry, didn't mean to throw my pen at nobody. Could you do us a favor, Mayor Pro Tem? It's been a few years since I was in the role. Can you put together a list of those things that you are doing, things that are required versus voluntary, and maybe we can bring that back and look at possible inclusion?
Yeah.
I think it's worth at least the council looking at what those things are. I'm seeing kind of both sides of this. I can see keeping it simple because it may change, but there are definitely some things the Mayor Pro Tem has to do. Go ahead.
Why I say that is because what I've observed previous Mayor Pro Tems is that the duties have been changed and more duties have been given to that. So I think it's important if somebody else is going to fill in that position, that they realize this is what the requirements are. This is what is being done now. This is what's expected of you, versus just saying, I want to be Mayor Pro Tem, and it looks good on my resume, so I think I'll just go for that.
Councilmember Kurtz.
I like what Mayor Pro Tem is saying. I don't know if it fits in the rules of procedure though. I guess one thing I've been thinking about is, expectations of council. Like, we attend meetings, but what else could we do? What else should our citizens expect us to do? And I feel like maybe that's what Mayor Pro Tem is getting at. But I'm wondering if it almost is its own document versus fitting in with the rules of procedure, if that makes sense, because this feels a little bit different, but I do like what he's saying. I just don't know if it fits in this, if that makes sense.
Point taken. Any other comments? All right, well, obviously, we're going to have another go through when we get the red lines on all of these. So Mayor Pro Tem, if we can maybe just touch on that, but I like the idea that Councilmember Kurtz has brought up about maybe a separate document, because I know a lot of us have been having conversations about, currently the job description for council is 2 meetings a month with some possible special meetings. Pretty much it. Things have changed over the years, so it might be worth looking at. Councilmember Kurtz.
And I'd be happy to work on that with anybody else, whether it's Mayor Pro Tem or one of the other council members, to kind of come up with that. So let me know who wants to work on it. But I think coming up with just some kind of general expectations, things that we all know that we're doing, but someone who's applying might not know that they're, volunteering for. I think it would be good to have some consistency in what the citizens can expect of the council members.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're almost done, guys. Page 12, section 9.6, selection of Mayor Pro Tem nominations. Mayor Pro Tem will be selected by the council members. The term for Mayor Pro Tem shall be 2 years from the date of election. Council members may each nominate one person for Mayor Pro Tem. Nominations require a second. Each council member shall be given the opportunity to submit a nomination for Mayor Pro Tem. After all nominations are made, the mayor will call for a vote on the nominations in the order they were made. Voting will either be by voice or a recorded vote as determined by the mayor. As soon as one nominee receives a majority vote of 4 votes, note that it is 4 no matter how many council members are here that night, of the council member shall be declared the Mayor Pro Tem. No vote shall be taken on the remaining nominees. Comments, questions? Councilmember Kurtz.
The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the part about the first nominee is the first one that gets to vote, but I don't know if others have an opinion about that.
Any other comments, Councilmember Severs? Anything from you?
Nope.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem?
I was thinking back when we have 12 or 14 or how many individuals apply, what we do is we take their name and draw out of the hat.
This is Mayor Pro Tem.
I realize that.
Oh.
I realize that.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if that wouldn't also apply here.
Just a random draw.
Two is probably not very good, but if we get 2 or if we get a couple of them, put their name in the hat, whoever comes out first, that's the person to vote on and go from there.
Councilmember Follier.
One of the veterans here, how often do you have more than 2 candidates?
For Mayor Pro Tem, not often.
I don't recall ever, not in my 8 years.
Do what?
He doesn't recall ever since in 8 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I have either in 11. Let's kind of leave it as it is.
Works for me.
Okey-doke. 9.7, removal of mayor pro tem. We've never done this. The mayor pro tem may be removed from office upon a vote of 4 council members. The story there. 10, preparation of agenda. 10.1, staff duties. The city clerk, under the direction of the mayor or his or her designee, will prepare the agenda for each council meeting, setting forth a brief description of each item to be considered by the council. The agenda prior to submission to the council shall be reviewed by the chair. 10. Any questions there? Okay. 10.2, agenda items. An item to be considered by the city council at a regular meeting may be placed on the agenda by the mayor, a council member, or the city administrator. Okay. 10.3, timing of preparation. The agenda, and this has changed. The agenda will be put in final form by 1 p.m. Friday. We're at noon on Thursday now, Katie? Or do we want to leave this for some leeway in the future?
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask Ann to join us. Right now, to share with you, we want all of the council items, the agenda items, excuse me, by noon on Wednesday, so she can put them together and get them distributed by Friday. There are some emergency things where we'll shift the deadline a little bit. Depending on the week, we do try to get the agenda out on Thursday. I know when, Mayor Brickner was in office, he made a request that they be on sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can make that deadline and sometimes we can't. Right. So this basically tells us that we're going to get it out by 1 p.m. on Friday. I think that's manageable,
Okay.
and we can do earlier if needed, but sometimes that can be difficult.
Okay. So we don't want to set ourselves up for failure, but if we can beat it with the information we have, that's great. Is that acceptable to everybody still? Okay. Agendas will be distributed by the city, to the city council and city staff by 5 p.m. on Friday. Agenda materials will be available at City Hall for the media and public on the Friday before the regular meeting. We probably want to make a note about the link on the website. Nothing contained herein shall prevent the mayor, council members, or the city administrator from adding a matter to the agenda prior to the city council approval of the agenda according to section 4. Go ahead, Katie.
Just a comment, and I'll go really quick. Somewhere else in here, and I'm not sure the section, it says that it takes 3 council members to add something to the agenda.
We'll go back.
I'm sorry. I don't know, but I wouldn't want there to be inconsistency in our policy.
We will double check for that. I know we've talked about that, but I don't.
It was in here, and
Okay.
I'll try to find it.
Just comment.
Yes,
It's
go ahead.
very specific. It takes 3 council members to have a meeting.
Okay.
Any council member can add something to the agenda. Specifically 3 to add a meeting. The mayor, the administrator, and 3 council members. It takes 3 council members to add a special meeting.
Versus adding something to the agenda, so I think we should be clear. Okay, we'll double check just to make sure. Suspension and amendment of rules, section 11. Oh, yes, go ahead, Councilor Foyer.
Since we're talking about timelines,
Yes.
I don't recall anything in this document about the cutoff time for written comment.
Good point. So what, are we 4 o'clock the day of the meeting, Ann?
That is correct, yes, and it's listed on the agenda, so.
I think it's on, yeah, it's on the agenda, but is it something the council would like to add to the rules?
Yeah.
I'm hearing consensus, okay.
Sounds good.
Add 4 p.m. citizen comment deadline. Okay, got it. Thank you very much, Ann. Hate to put you on the spot. Okay, suspension of rules, suspension of these rules. Any provision of these rules may be temporarily suspended by a vote of a majority of the council. 11.2, amendment of these rules. These rules may be amended or new rules adopted by a majority vote of all members of the council, provided that the proposed amendments or new rules shall have been introduced into the record at a prior council meeting. I think we've managed that. Okay, so we've made it through here. I know I've got some preliminary red lines from the first meeting. We've got, I think, a little bit more work to do before we obviously get the full red lines out to everybody. And then as soon as we can get those done, then we'll see how soon we can get it on a future meeting. But okay with everybody? Mm-hmm. All right, so it is, wow, we did good, 6:54. We'll go ahead and take a break until 7 p.m. We'll go ahead and mute ourselves here, and we'll see everybody back at the regular meeting at 7. All right, everybody, make sure we got everybody back on. Uh-oh, Chief Simmons is trying to call me. Mayor Pro Tem, would you mind kicking the meeting off while I answer Chief Simmons' call real quick?
Yes, I do not have access to the full screen.
Okay. Can you call him, Darren? Thank you. I apologize, everybody.
No problem.
All right, so, welcome to our June 1st City Council meeting and public hearing, being held remotely and in chambers. Pursuant to Governor Inslee's Order 20-25-12, issued January 11, 2021, local governments in Phase 2 must allow persons to attend public meetings remotely, provided, however, the proclamation further allows in-person meetings under limited conditions in addition to remote public meetings. At the present time, due to the conditions required to hold in-person meetings, the City of Liberty Lake will continue to hold all public meetings remotely. We are working on that. More information to come. To sign up for public comment at the meeting, you can submit a note to Todd Henderson, who will get my attention during citizen comments in the public hearing to let me know if someone wants to speak. So go ahead and do the invocation. Mike, can I put you on the spot? Would you mind doing it?
You certainly may.
Okay.
And I'll put somebody else on the spot. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us this evening to help us do our duties for the citizens of Liberty Lake. We ask continued support for all the caregivers and the support we have through our police and fire that keep us safe on a daily basis. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Call the meeting to order. You good? Okay. All right, we'll do a quick roll call and then agenda approval. So go ahead, Councilmember Woodruff.
Present.
Councilmember Follier.
Present.
Councilmember Dunn.
Good evening.
Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy.
Present?
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Severs.
Present.
And we will note that Councilmember Langford is out for family. Is there a motion to?
I'll make a motion, we excuse.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Langford. All in favor, or any discussion? No. Okay, all in favor of excusing Councilmember Langford, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Councilmember Langford is excused. So do you need me?
When you get back.
Okay, actually, so Mayor Pro Tem, can I hand agenda approval over to you along with citizen comments while I talk to Sergeant?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, for the council consideration, we have no additions or subtractions to the agenda. So I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented to us this evening.
Second?
Discussion? There no discussion, we have a motion, a second, no discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Thank you. It passes. Yes, we'll move on. Next we have on the agenda would be citizen comments. Todd, do we have any citizens that are requested?
Not yet.
Stretch that out, Todd. Can you say that slower? No, we don't.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I offer, I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
Councilmember Kurtz and Councilmember Severs both voted to support the agenda approval.
Okay, yeah,
There was a delay in the,
right. At this point, yeah, you're running the meeting on my computer. I do not have the full screen of everybody. So now that our mayor is back, she'll be able to assume that.
So where are we? I apologize, I've had a
There's no
situation.
citizen comments, we're on the number 7.
Okay, all right, announcements, proclamations, special presentations. So we have with us tonight the Gallant Guards of Liberty for the Wall That Heals. DG Garcia is with us along with the rest of the committee, and we're going to turn it over to her for the presentation. Welcome, team.
Welcome, and thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and City Council members, for inviting us to participate in a presentation today in regards to our efforts to bring the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall to Liberty Lake. The Gallant Guards of Liberty is an informal community group of veterans, Vietnam era vets, peacetime vets, and veterans from the direct conflict of Vietnam, along with community members who have been diligently working on a proposal to bring the replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall to Liberty Lake. And until recently, we have been known as an exploratory group. However, to that end, we have been working very diligently, and there are members in the community I would like to acknowledge. They are as follows: Tom Pauley, a veteran, co-fundraiser coordinator and Global Credit Union member of the board. Don Walker, a veteran, our media coordinator with Veteran Help Net. Jen Camp, City Representative, Parks and Recreation, Site Logistics Coordinator. The Honorable Mayor Chris Kaminkas, our Government Liaison and Support. Brian Asmus, CVSD, Project Volunteer Education Coordinator. John Bihosa, Veteran, Liberty Lake Police Department Ambassador, Project Escort Coordinator. Chief Damon Simmons, Veteran, Liberty Lake Police Department Enforcement Coordinator. Shane Brickner, Local Business Project Coordinator. Rick Schutz, Veteran, Co-Committee Chair and Fundraising Co-Coordinator. And myself, DG Garcia, Veteran, Co-Committee Chair and Wall Project Coordinator. Gerald Olson, CVSD Site Logistics Support. And last but certainly not least, Trevor Slocum, City Parks and Recreation Site Logistics Support. I am honored to work with this fine group of professionals as they are part of this event's success, and I want to thank them for their participation. At this time, we would like to ask Jen Camp to describe the efforts of her logistics team in bringing the wall to Liberty Lake. Jen?
Thank you so much. So after much discussion, not only with this group, but with my crew, particularly Trevor Slocum, about what the options would be or could be for a site to be able to host something this wonderful. It took a lot of planning. There are a lot of parameters that are required to be able to host something like this. Some of the examples are, we have to be cognizant of lighting, we have to be cognizant of elevation changes in the ground, we have to be cognizant of ambiance, all kinds of things. So as we searched around the city of Liberty Lake to find the best location for this, we came to the conclusion that somewhere on the city ball fields between the two schools would be kind of a prime location, particularly the south field, the south baseball field. So we've been working closely with Central Valley School District to kind of coordinate with them on not only our property between the two schools, but to coordinate with the Central Valley School District on their properties. We do have some backup locations in mind as we move down this path of trying to get acceptance from the committee that approves us of the wall. We have backup locations and backup dates as possibilities, but that south baseball field right now is our #1 prime location, or one of the fields surrounding that. So DG, if I missed anything, let me know.
Well, if you would let them know, for example, if there comes a time we might have to change our date or location, how swiftly would you be able to get the boots on the ground to do that?
So that, if we're scheduling out into next year, that's pretty easy to do. Our options are open. And once we have several dates identified as the committee, as city staff, we will keep those dates open for that potential time frame, so that we're not scheduling things like baseball games that would conflict with the wall, for example, being on the south baseball field. So it's very flexible, it's very fluid. We're able to have and offer a lot of flexibility to move dates as needed. I know DG's done great about identifying this early in the game. And even if we had the opportunity to do this sooner than later, we do, she and I have worked closely to identify those possible dates, and those will be flexible for this particular wall to come to Liberty Lake.
Beautiful, Jen. Thank you very much. So now you've all heard about the Gallant Guards of Liberty, and why we are doing this is to honor all those who served. Rick Schutz, who is our co-committee chair, will give you the next leg of information before you have questions and answers. Rick, would you go ahead, please? Rick, you're on mute, Rick.
There we go. Nobody wants to hear me anyway, but to Mayor Kaminsky and to City Council, I'd like to thank you very much for allowing us to make our presentation here this evening. And we have gotten some new information that we just received before the Memorial Day weekend, that the moving wall has committed to us for September of 2022. And being that we've had a long weekend, have not been able to communicate this to Jen, but we're thinking that Pavilion Park would be an ideal position for this, by being able to use the movie screen to show some video and educational material at that location. The moving wall is approximately 100 feet shorter than the wall that heals. This group stepped up. They knew that we were out looking for a wall to come here to Liberty Lake in 2022. They have given us a date, but until they get our registration form in hand, they'll commit to a date in September, but they didn't want to give that date exactly at this time. So we're looking forward to hearing from them within the next week after they receive our registration form, which has been sent out to them at this time. We are truly looking forward to this, and as being a Vietnam veteran myself, I welcome it here to the community, regardless of what wall it will be. It'll be a wall that brings a lot of healing and a lot of reflection of the past, as I know it will for me. And I do want to thank you once again for allowing us to speak and sharing our moment with you. And Mayor Kaminsky, I would like to give this to you. So if you have any further comments to sum this up, please do so. And I again.
We thank the committee and all the work you've done. I've been so impressed with how far you've come with the little resources that you were able to start out with. You know, I think I've loved this idea from the start, and just based on the response that the Rotary got for the luminaries at Pavilion Park over the weekend for Memorial Day, just brought the importance of that date and remembering our fallen heroes. It really brought it home and just gave Memorial Day so much more meaning. And I don't think there's anybody who attended or was able to visit and see those luminaries on Sunday and Monday had a negative thing to say. I've heard all positive. So it's a great start towards your project, and really excited to hear about September. And if I remember the length of the full wall, I think you guys were saying it was 300 feet, so we're still looking at about 200, if I remember correctly. I've had the opportunity to talk to some of our local organizations about your efforts, and we actually have Meg Winchester from Visit Spokane on the call listening to presentation, and we may actually ask you guys to do another presentation to them at some point. We also have Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce on the line as well. Everybody's very excited about the opportunity. I've also had the fortune of being at an event within the last couple of weeks and was able to put a bug in Colonel Bentley's ear at Fairchild. And I'm sure I'll be getting with John DeJosa on that at some point. And luckily, Kathy McMorris Rogers was here for our Memorial Day event, and I'll be following up with her office as well with regards to support and getting the word out on this. The community, not just Liberty Lake, but Spokane as a whole, I think is really going to embrace this. And whatever we can do to help out, to make it bigger, better, and, you know, draw people in from hundreds of miles away. I'm expecting them to come from. We're here, and we'll throw our support your way.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. I suspect you may have some questions for us. We do have, as you notice, a few coordinators on this Zoom who may be able to answer those questions, but we will make sure you have answers today. Are there any questions?
Oh, Councilmember Woodruff.
Not a question, but just a comment. I had the opportunity to see the moving wall twice in Richmond, Indiana, where I used to live, and it is a memorable experience. It's my generation's war, the Vietnam War, and that I applaud all the efforts to bring that here to Liberty Lake. When it comes, please go see it, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question.
Yep, Councilmember Follier.
Yeah, my question is, how do we address donations? Who do we give them to? Taking donations, right?
Beautiful. Yes, we are taking donations, and you, we're always taking donations, sir. We appreciate you as another veteran as well. I can give that address to you currently, and that address is the Gallant Guards of Liberty. And the address is 1324 North Liberty Lake Road, number 353, Liberty Lake, Washington, 99019. Did I go too quick?
I think we're all, looks like everybody's good. And we'll, can we get a link up on the website as well? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, members. We appreciate it.
So before you guys go, so I know there's a lot of talk about the need for volunteers for this event, and I know we're more than a year out. But would somebody have just a moment to talk about the number of volunteers that you're going to be looking for and how long it's here and whatnot?
Yes, Brian, would you like to speak to that issue?
Yes, thank you very much, DG, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I can see some of you. Great to see you, even if it's virtually again, but in a different role. So I am the volunteer coordinator for this project. What we're currently doing is reaching out to our service clubs primarily at this point. So our Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, and they are excited about this opportunity to volunteer. I can't remember the exact number. I know we want, I think it's 40 plus volunteers to try to assist with this project. And then it does, it's fairly quick so that it comes in, I believe it, well, it depends on the dates. So we'll leave it at that, but it's here for a few days. Part of this project though is not only bringing in the wall, but also there's an education component. So there's a separate, basically a semi-trailer that is the educational component for the wall that we're going to, we'll need some volunteers to help us with that. And then again, is now working for the school district is our hope is to engage several of our students in Central Valley to participate in the educational process of this wall as well.
Thank you. And I know a bunch of Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops looking to lend a hand too if you need smaller hands. All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, so we are looking forward to updates and how we can all get involved.
Just real quick, Mayor, if I might, the wall will be here for 4 days and it's open 24 hours a day. So if somebody has to work late, they can come at the wall at 12 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it will be there for them for the entire 4 days.
Thank you very much. Well, we look forward to future updates. Thank you so much for taking your time tonight, guys. This is really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, I guess we are on to reports. So city council reports. I think Councilmember Woodruff wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two things I'd like to say, actually.
Great.
First is just to thank the veterans and everybody involved in the ceremony yesterday for Memorial Day. It was moving, it was amazing. The luminaries were amazing. My wife and I walked up last night to see them lit, and I just want to applaud everyone who was involved in that. Second thing's a little harder, and I'm gonna make this really quick because I'm gonna lose it. I turned in my resignation from city council today, which will be effective at the end of the June 15th city council meeting. We followed family out here, across the country, and we've made a home here in Liberty Lake, and we love Liberty Lake, and being on council, a dream come true. Now we're going to be following family back across the country to North Carolina. So, I informed the mayor last week and council this morning, and now I just want to let the public know it's been an honor and a privilege. We have to be quiet now. Thank you.
No, you've certainly made an impact, Holly, on the community in the short time you've been here. You know, president, friends of the library, council, salary commission, and I know you almost since the day you moved here. It's fortunate for me that you wouldn't have gone on this journey if you had any idea this was coming. So we are certainly going to miss you and everything you do for the community.
Thank you. I'm going to miss all of you, and I'm going to miss this community.
All right, Councilmember Dunn.
I was going to offer my gracious thanks to the Rotary Club and their work of the weekend as well, and specifically the work of the Rotary to identify an action and activity which is, I think, accommodating to some of our pandemic conditions. Our ability to walk, to look, and to enjoy this moment was incredible action, creativity, and it's one that I think the community was really heartfelt. And then I guess it would only have to work, comment in response. Holly, I have to remark, you've been a model in our community for volunteerism. You've been a steadfast contributor in the places that count. Turnout is what it's about, and you've modeled that in spades. And so I'm just very grateful for all the contributions you made and all the things you've been a part of in the community. Thanks.
Any other council reports? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem. And then Councilmember Kurtz after that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Holly, I've already spoke to you. You know where I'm coming from and where I feel there. Thank you for everything. God bless you for everything you've done for the city. Yeah, I'd like to make a comment also on this weekend with the Rotary. Is that when I understood the luminaries are going to be there, I thought, gee, what a great idea, because we've seen that in the past. I thought it would be great. So the first night, Betty and I decided when it was nice and dark, we would drive over there. And of my age group, I know what the Vietnam era was because I was in the service at that time. I lived through that. I was fortunate not to have to go to Vietnam, but I saw what it did to everybody during that period of time, and I've seen what the wars have done since then. I had the opportunity to go back east twice and see the wall the first time. I felt I was a tourist and I was looking forward to it. I did not realize the impact that it hit me when I saw that wall. I saw the names of two individuals that I lost contact with and often wondered where they went in life. Names on that wall. Some years later, I was able to go back there a second time. I was able to appreciate it even more. So having said that, I really thought I was going to get through this. The Rotary did a phenomenal job because the first night when Betty and I went over there, we got out of the car and we walked up to see all the lights. I had no idea it was going to hit me as hard as it did when I was at the wall twice. When I saw those lights, I realized those would represent many, many individuals. So the Rotary has done a phenomenal job. The individuals are bringing that wall to this town. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. The wall is something that was Vietnam era, but the benefit is that that wall, I've talked to quite a few individuals since then who are 20 and 30 years younger than I that experienced a war that I did not experience. But that wall represents as much to them as it does to myself and other individuals, because that becomes a healing wall, that they're able to look and realize those individuals gave up their lives so we can do what we're doing today. And also just the parents, the guardians, mothers and children that have continued on with that. So I really, really appreciate the individuals in this town that do what they do. On a lighter side, I am pleased to see that work has started on the flashing lights. The entrance to Gardner Ridge, Liberty Creek has started. And with that in mind, I really want to appreciate and give thanks to Brad and Sue Hamlet, Marilyn Steam, and Betty Kennedy, who went out and spent quite a bit of time getting over 200 and some odd signatures of individuals that was able to push the council into realizing that those were very important at schools and the crossing where kids are going to school. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Kurtz next. So I do have a note from our meeting manager that some citizens have commented that they're having trouble hearing some council members. So just make sure your microphone is on and close to your face, please. Go ahead, Councilmember Kurtz.
I just wanted to echo what others have said about the Rotary celebration that we had yesterday and the number of speakers that we had speaking to our community. I read the agenda beforehand. I knew that the colors were going to be presented, and it still moves me every time I see it. And then to hear taps coming from a hill behind you after the young man from Central Valley spoke, it was just a really moving experience. And I appreciate everybody who took the time to bring that to our community. I saw it on the news last night as well. The luminaries lit up, and it was a really great opportunity as a citizen to help our kids understand why they have a day off, that it's not a holiday about barbecues and that it's a celebration of people's lives. And so I really appreciate everybody who took the time to be present for it, to go out and view it, and to bring it to our community. It was just amazing. And so I just really want to say thank you. That's it.
Any other council reports or comments? Councilmember Severs, since I can't see you, do you have anything?
I don't think so. I'll just throw a comment out there to Holly. I sent you an email earlier, but gosh, you're gonna be missed, and I totally respect and love what you're doing, but man, you are gonna be missed. So thank you for all the service you've put in over the years, and the whole community will miss you.
All right, we'll all dry our eyes. It's an emotional meeting. So I will start the mayor's report with an email actually that I got a little after noon today, so the timing was really good. And I wish I'd had a chance to get a hold of this recent UW grad that I got the email about. So I got the email from the University of Washington. It says every year the UW recognizes 100 undergraduate and graduate students who are making the most of their Husky experience. The Husky 100 is made up of students with diverse backgrounds and areas of study from across the UW's Bothell, Seattle, and Tacoma campuses. The UW community is proud to highlight the resilience and boundless potential of the 2021 award recipients. We are happy to share that one student from the city of Liberty Lake, Kat Hannas from Central Valley High School, has been recognized as part of the 2021 Husky 100. And there's a bio here I'll read real quick. Kat Hannas, Liberty Lake, Washington, BS in Aeronautics and Astronautics, year awarded 2021. She says, during my time at the UW, I have been able to thrive as an engineer and gain hands-on knowledge outside the classroom, which will serve me in pushing the human boundaries of space exploration. I serve as the chief engineer for the Society for Advanced Rocket Propulsion, SARP, and I use my experiences to mentor other students and participate in local STEM outreach. The UW has empowered me to reach beyond aerospace and also pursue my passions for environmental studies. Oh, and it cut off. Great. Of environmental studies, period. So they say they are nominated by their peers, faculty, staff, and mentors. The Husky 100 is comprised of juniors, seniors, and graduate students who have shown true passion, leadership, and dedication as a Husky. So congratulations to Kat. I did see Superintendent Small on the line. I don't know if he knows Kat, but I will be reaching out to her since she's a CV grad. All right, mayor's report, yes. Oh, I thought somebody, no?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm just clearing my throat.
Okay, all right.
I'm just gonna say good
Excuse
job.
you. Yeah, go dog.
That's worth it.
I'm sure there's many people on there saying the same thing. Okay, mayor's report, got quite a few things on here, so I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. So I met with the organizers of the 4th of July boat parade, which is happening at noon, and the organizer of the lake fireworks, which will be happening at 10 p.m. as well. So I'll be helping kick off the boat parade, as I said, at noon down at the public boat launch. If you are looking to get your boat into the parade or as part of the contest, because there will be first, second, and third prizes, make sure you're in the water by 11:30. The fireworks will go off at 10 p.m. the same time as the city. Stonehill, I don't know if anybody who's on the meeting lives in any of the units over in Stonehill. Construction seems to be at a standstill. I've had a lot of questions about it at the farmer's market. So I was able to get an invitation to an HOA meeting that the developer is having on June 10th. So hopefully we'll have some better information as to what's going on over there from the developer himself. Let's see. Regional mayors meetings, we have these once, sometimes twice a month. The general consensus among the regional mayors is that everybody's putting together work groups of sorts with regards to ARP priorities, American Rescue Plan dollars. This council will be looking at this a little later on. And another point to note is that all of the municipalities are also looking at ways to help nonprofits replace funds that were expected to be raised in 2020. A reminder to the council and any staff that the AWC annual conference is being held remotely this year. It's the week of June 21st. So if you want to sign up, let Ann Swenson know. I tried to find out about the different breakout sessions. I have not been able to find anything on their site yet, so it'll be interesting to see how it works this year. Will be swearing in, we already swore in new officer Logan Irwin, and Chief Simmons will be introducing him a little bit later. I'm not going to steal Jen's thunder on splash pads. I'll wait for her to report on that later. The Greater Spokane Valley Chamber, we had our Government Action Committee meeting last week. It was very interesting listening to Representative McCaslin and Senator Padden, very passionate about how things were handled at the legislature this year. And the quote I took from that was, the majority locked their agenda in by locking the public out. So it was a very interesting comment and very interesting session. I'll leave it there. And there are obviously a lot of police reform bills that went through that Chief Simmons is trying to make his way through and how they impact the LLPD. AWC had a session on the Washington Reopen Plan, and I also attended a joint MRSC AWC legal landscape for the post-COVID office meeting. It's very interesting talking about telework policies going forward, and we'll be looking at that as a city as well, with obviously council input and with regards to the policy manual. And last but not least, Ben Small, Superintendent of Central Valley, did a great update at the chamber meeting with regards to, what do we call it, the building shuffling? The district office and other changes with regards to buildings and facilities. So he has agreed to present that to us as a council at the next meeting on the 15th. All right, I will turn the rest over to you, Katie.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Let's see here, we'll wait till my agenda gets up on the board so we can all follow it together. Question, I want to start with a question, and that is next council meeting, June 15th, we do not have a 6 p.m. workshop scheduled. Do you want us to try to bring back the rules and procedures that we discussed today, highlighted and with edits, so that you guys can continue your conversation? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I know she's on the call, so she'll be making a note of that. And then at the 7 p.m. workshop, the library trustees have a presentation. They're working on it. It's not complete right now, but they have asked me on the agenda to share with you information about the library, the vision that they have for our library, and some opportunities and wanting to get I think, feedback and support from the council. So wanted to make you aware of that.
Real quick, Katie, Councilmember Kurtz has a question.
We had talked about doing the Commission for Community Engagement on the 15th too. Is that still an option?
Yes, it is. I have not done my research yet. Councilmember Kurtz, do you want, why don't you and I get together and we can put together some information that we can present to the council?
Yeah, I know Mayor Pro Tem and I have talked about this a little bit too, and we were wondering if we might be able to move this out a little bit, given the fact we still need to go through the council rules of procedure, we still need to get through the council priorities and the American Rescue Plan items.
The community engagement?
Yes.
I think that we could move it out, but we have been moving it out. And I think that I'd still like to move forward with it. I'm wondering if there's a way to fit it in. I think one of the things that everybody has talked about is really focusing on how to get input from the community. But if we keep pushing that out, we won't have the community's input on some of these things like council priorities and things that we are talking about and budgeting. So I'd like to strike a balance of being reasonable, but also realize that I've been asking for this for a while too.
We'll take a look at the schedule and see what we can work out.
Councilmember Kurtz, I will follow up with a phone call tomorrow morning and we can coordinate getting together on some materials.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. And then at this time, I'd like to turn the report over to Chief Simmons, who's going to introduce our new police officer.
Thank you. Good evening. It is with honor that I introduce our newest member of the Liberty Lake Police Department family, Officer Logan Irvin. Officer Irvin was actually sworn in on Monday the 24th, and he's been working with us for almost a whole week. Officer Irvin was born and raised in Spokane County. He grew up in Spokane Valley with a very large family. Officer Irvin began serving others at a young age. At 12, he volunteered at his church, and as he grew, volunteered in the community, at summer camps, and in the Civil Air Patrol. As a young adult, Officer Irvin became a co-op volunteer with the Spokane Police Department. Officer Irvin earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Washington State University and is a 2019 graduate of the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy. Officer Irvin comes to us with prior law enforcement experience with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. And at this time, I'd like to introduce everyone to Officer Logan Irvin. Officer Irvin, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Logan Irvin. Sounds like Chief Simmons kind of had a big bio for me, so he kind of went through everything I planned to say. But yeah, I grew up in the Spokane area, and my wife and I just bought a house nearby. We're not too far outside of Liberty Lake limits. We're about 2 blocks right outside. So in the community, super excited to be here and excited to serve with the community here, and love the area and just super excited to be on board.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, the next item I wanted to share with the council is that the new server that's identified on your agenda under 10B3, the lowest responsive vendor was FCW, and they will be delivering this server in less than 10 days. So this is a very important purchase for us. It provides the redundancy and the backup that our system needs in order for us to conduct our business. So wanted to make sure that you are aware of who the lowest responsive bidder was. And then moving on to COVID, always an update. City facilities are open. We are asking our employees that if they do not want to wear masks, that they show proof that they've been vaccinated. And the public, we ask that masks are still required. However, if you've been vaccinated, we're following the CDC's recommendations. So that's kind of where we are with city facilities. We all know that the state of Washington is opening up June 30th, but the mayor has been following hourly the status of splash pads, and Jen has been reporting hourly the status of splash pads. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Jen for the good news.
Well, and what really is funny is that, but Katie, Jen, and I were all downtown at separate times. Well, I guess Katie and Jen ran into each other, checking out the splash pad, and we didn't know each other were there, so.
And I found out Lisa was down there as well. So, they have a new park in Riverfront Park for the kids, and it is very cool. However, our splash pads are just as cool.
And bigger, ours are bigger. Yep. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Okay, so the hot topic or cool topic of Facebook lately has been splash pads. And when are they opening? So we found out today that we are able to open splash pads. They have lifted the capacity guidelines that were really regulating us to monitor the amounts of people that would come and go in our splash pads. So since those have been lifted with proper signage and an occasional check on the actual splash pads from our staff, and we are able to open. Our goal is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The splash pads will run from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pavilion Park does have an electrical issue that they are troubleshooting tomorrow. It's left over from the irrigation project. So once that is repaired, that splash pad will get turned on. We're hoping it will get turned on tomorrow, but it could be within the next day or two. We've notified people through Newsflash on the city website, which was also sent out via text message, which if you're signed up for that, you would have received the text message and the email. And then between the mayor and myself, it's been shared out to social media. It's really a big deal. I think that beyond Riverfront Park opening their splash pad over the weekend, that one splash pad, I noticed the Rotary fountain down by the carousel was not open. I think that we're second in line to actually open ours first. So while there still are a few guidelines, we'll have signage posted to remind folks of, the proper COVID etiquette. We're good to go, and it's pretty exciting because we haven't had our splash pads open in over a year. So if there are any questions, please let me know, shoot me an email. But yeah, we have the go-ahead from the health department.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Great, Jen. Great news. I have two questions for you. Did I understand you correctly to say that we're limited on the number of individuals we could have in the splash pad at any given time?
No, so the capacities that were limiting us and causing us to monitor have been lifted. So there are no more capacity requirements. There are no more capacity requirements. So there were capacity requirements which caused us to have to staff them and basically, long story short, boot people out, but we don't have that anymore. So we're clear, no capacity requirements.
Well, that answer leads to I don't need to ask the next question. Thank you.
Well, and I want to throw the challenge out there. I'm going to be at Orchard Park at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to get my feet wet with everybody. So whoever can join me, please come. Councilmember Dunn, I think I saw your hand up.
That was the only question is, between Orchard Park and Pavilion, it sounds like, tomorrow I can show up in shorts and a tank top and jump around. Okay.
Bring the puppy dog.
All right.
Boy, that's a hard act to follow, but I will keep going. The National League of Cities is an organization I know Mayor Kaminskas has been tracking for a lot of years because they provide great information. And so we were able to, we got a membership based on our population, $1,563. Actually, it was prorated, so it was significantly less than that. But it was extended to all of you are now members because we signed you up, as well as city staff. If you recall, when I sent you some information about the American Rescue Plan, that information came from the National League of Cities. Mayor, did you want to?
Yeah, and they've been having regular meetings on Fridays for COVID updates. They have a lot of training opportunities, conferences. Katie, I think you went to the city, I forgot what it was called. There was a conference you went to virtually earlier this year. They have a conference that's actually planned in person this year in November in Salt Lake City. I haven't checked to see how many days. I think it's 2 or 3 days, but I see them as the next step past AWC and the Association of Washington Cities. Now we've got the National League of Cities. So really encourage you guys, and I provided the link on my weekly mayor's report to check it out, see what trainings are out there that you can take advantage of. And anything you want to know is there. It's amazing the depth of information that they have to help us engage, be more knowledgeable about our jobs and just how cities run and how to advocate for our city. I believe, is it Linda Thompson who serves on the National League of Cities from Spokane Valley? So that's great that we actually have somebody from this part of the state and this part of the country serving as a representative on that organization.
And they also have a very loud voice in Washington DC on policies that affect municipalities. And then also the mayor, we did take it out of our budget on professional services, so that's where the money came from to make that, to join. So a quick update on Trailhead. After our workshop and then the council's budget amendment to fund $250,000, Lisa worked really fast. She put together an RFQ. It's out there. She told me first thing this morning that there's a lot of interest in it. And so on that note, we will be collecting submittals. The time frame is probably mid to late July. And we hope to bring a project manager to the council to award a contract to them late July or early August. But that's moving along very quickly. And I just wanted to say thank you to Lisa. She turned it around really quick. So on that note, as far as on the selection interview panel, I was just going to mention, I've asked Councilmember Foyer, Chris Johnston, our pro Trailhead, and Lisa and myself, we will be on the interview panel. So looking forward to that, moving along fairly quickly. And then finally, or not finally, but Ben is going to give us an update on public works projects. There's a lot going on.
Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to say this evening that Kramer Parkway opened up today. So thank you very much for everybody's patience while those frontage improvements and that critical repair work was done. So it will be open to truck traffic and light vehicle traffic as well. Also wanted to say that we've had a lot of interest in our Kramer Parkway Bridge project, and because of that, there have been a couple of addendum questions, and that bid advertisement or that bid close date has actually been shifted to June 9th, which is next Wednesday. The pedestrian crossings are under construction currently right now. Those started today. So we're looking forward to getting those done. The contractor's moving along swiftly, so you'll see them out there doing those as you're out and about in the city. And then also wanted to say that the public works yard frontage improvements, we had a lot of interested bidders there, and the apparent low came back about $27,000 below the engineer's opinion of probable cost. So just in general, we're getting a lot of interest in projects, and the bids so far from what we've seen have been coming back low. So I'm excited to see that.
And then the contract award for the frontage improvements of the public works yard, that'll be on next council meeting's agenda?
Correct. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, and then just under recruitments, we do have a police officer opening, and so Chief Simmons is that recruitment is underway right now, and I hear that we have very good applicants interested in joining our officers. Then just to wrap up events, so the vaccine clinic, the mobile vaccine clinic is Friday, June 4th from 3 to 6. You can get your second vaccine. You can also get your first vaccine. Farmers market is ongoing. Garage sale that Quasi helped organize and put together this year is June 18th and 19th. The book sale is Saturday, June 19th. Fireworks is going to be on the 4th of July. The library soiree is going to be July 14th. The cornhole tournament, late August. I didn't have the date exactly yet. And then, of course, Labor Day and the birthday celebration of our city. We will be 20 years old. Labor Day weekend, September 5th and 6th. And Mayor, we talked about bringing it back to the full council, so all of you can weigh in on what kind of celebration you want to have for the city's 20th birthday.
Councilmember Dunn.
Yeah, just maybe throw in a couple additions. July 3rd then is the opening night of the summer cinema for the outdoors at the Pavilion Park. The Kiwanis are finalizing the schedule. You could say on the 3rd, come out for the cruise, the New Age family favorite. Watch for the schedule to be published soon. We're trying to create, finalize it and then get out in front of everybody as quickly as we can. Also, I just say with great pride that Spokane Symphony has been responsive to the upcoming Labor Day weekend. And very excited to say that we can host our Spokane Symphony at our park. More details to come on that.
Great. Dan, can you, Quantis provide the schedule for the movies? We can have it at the farmer's market.
Totally.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, is that it? Yep. All right, that was pretty fast for everything that was on there. Okay, so next we move to workshop discussions. First up is discussion of council priorities for the American Rescue Plan funding. We kind of have a start of some categories. We've kind of just used as an aid to help get this discussion going. As I noted earlier, a lot of the jurisdictions they're not going full speed on this yet because a lot of them are trying to figure out what the state and what the federal governments are going to continue to provide so that they can fill the gaps. We don't want to be spending that money somewhere that might be filled by a state or federal pot of money, so we can better use it for our local businesses and nonprofits and residents and whatnot. So if we can move to the next slide, kind of just gives the general kind of start of things just to get the conversation started. Kind of open it up for discussion, maybe take a category at a time as to what, how the council might want to apply some of this money. So you can start off with technology. This can be either at City Hall or the library or the PD or in the community. So does anybody have any, anybody want to start off that conversation? Councilmember Dunn?
Sure. So with respect to technology, what I point to is our council's ability to meet, I'd say have hybrid meetings with the public.
Yep.
I recognize our prior commitments to Granicus as an application which supports the presentation of the council meeting. But we just also then point towards, I'd say, every other possible way that we can make as high fidelity an experience for us to be able to communicate with each other and for the people who attend the meeting either in person or from, wherever they're at. I can't prescribe what technologies are sufficient or important for that, but just would want to open the door to say significant investment on top of that to make sure that we have as good as it gets, I'll call it. I'll point to my own personal and professional experience right now in trying to arrange that for what I'll call traditional medium to large scale employers. I have to think of a way that I'm going to get 5 people in a conference room and 3 people in their guest bedrooms or wherever it is that they're calling in from. And to make that work, I'm scratching, I'd say, the Hartford, for example. What really draw attention to my latest focal point is, like, for example, Gonzaga University and applications of technology in the classroom. There's a case study of an organization that has had, through real experience, had to test drive and demonstrate various modes of technology. That's personally, I'm going next in terms of understanding and evaluation. But I'd be really grateful for this city to make a commitment to see that, yeah, I'll use the words as high fidelity as possible. We can communicate with each other, and the people in our community can communicate either if they're in here or from wherever they are.
Good points, and I don't think we'll hear anybody disagree with that thought. We've been making some improvements, which we were forced into because of remote work and whatnot. And Todd's doing a great job in kind of managing that. We're through our transition, I believe, to the cloud with regards to Office 365. But there's a lot of improvements that need to be done, and it's just, those improvements are ripe for these ARP funds. So we had talked a little bit about maybe going out for an RFP or Q, I always get the two mixed up, for the ARP dollars to work with somebody to help us down that path. What is the strategic plan to get us where we need to be long term? Okay, great. So anything else on technology? I know there's a big push on broadband. From a national level. There's a lot of national and state funding available for that. So probably something that probably needs a little bit more research on what the city could do. I don't know if there's any gaps that we can fill that the state and federal government are not attacking right now. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Follier.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions. Can you refresh my memory on the amount we're talking about and how long we have to use it?
$2.3-ish million. We'll get the first half sometime this month, I think, and the second half next year. We have to the end of 2024 to spend it.
December 31st, 2024, and we'll get it in 2 installments, as the mayor said. The first installment will be June, so the same. We don't have it yet. And then the second installment, Kyle, I think it's about a year from now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's exactly 1 year after the first.
So we're gonna get half of the 2.3 in the next 30 days, but we have no guidance on how we can use it.
We do have some, right now, and I think that's, I think Kyle would be probably the best person at this point, and maybe at the next meeting to go through that guidance, but right now we're just kind of wanting to get everybody's ideas, on, you know, what you guys might want to, how you guys might want to direct the funds, and then we can figure out. The guidance is a lot more loose this time than it was the first time.
And where's the guidance coming from, state or federal?
Federal, yeah.
And it was
Still
written
changing.
very, as the mayor was saying, it's written, there's a lot of flexibility and not a lot of restrictions. And the good news is it's consistently flexible. So you're not getting different information from different sources, whether you talk to the National League of Cities, AWC, MRSC, all the information is consistent, but it gives incredible flexibility to the cities, to the counties and the state, because they got their own money, on how this money can be used. I can send that link out again, but basically it is, and I won't go through it.
It's a
right
lot
now,
of information to get.
but what we wanted to do tonight was ask, there's 5 categories here. The question we have is, are any of these categories you don't want? Or are there categories that you do want that aren't identified in here? I call these buckets, so there's 5 buckets here. Is there another bucket that you would like to see added? Or is one of these buckets something you're not interested in?
And just so I can add, before we go forward, so, with all these different meetings I've been going to, it's very clear, that most of the other municipalities are in the same boat we are in. We don't have the staff time or expertise to manage some of these things. You know, obviously we can manage it for our own IT, but if we're going to help the local businesses or help local residents or help our nonprofits, is there an existing entity that we can partner with who has that expertise? For instance, if we have residents that have, you know, rental payment issues or utility payment issues, is SNAP maybe a good partner because they already have processes in place to weed out, you know, is somebody behind on their bill because they didn't have to pay it and they used money for something else, or are they truly delinquent because of COVID issues, and they have the processes to kind of weed through that and manage. So I'm kind of gathering a list of those possible partners that we can use, but I think this is a much bigger thing than our staff can tackle. So I'd like the council to consider either bringing somebody on a contract basis or you know, to help maybe set some of these programs up, but that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves with regards to that. Just kind of want to go through, like Katie said, the buckets and some ideas that you guys might have of where you think this money would best be used. And we're going to figure out how we can fit it within those loose guidelines that we have. Councilmember Dunn and Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess I respond to the link that you shared, Katie, the guidance from the National League of Cities. I repetitively use the words response and recover in my kind of thinking through the action. Consider how our community, like I say, all the constituents of our community have been impacted by this pandemic. Consider what actions that they have, I'd say, have had to endure, what losses they've had to endure, and how we could, as a city then, somehow provide in order to provide that.
Yep.
It's something we've never, I guess, been in position to be able to do. That's why I really appreciate the creative approach to try and understand what we think as a group that would be best done by.
Yep. I know a lot of, like I mentioned earlier in my mayor's report, a lot of jurisdictions are looking to help their nonprofits, the Kiwanis, the Lions Club, the Rotary, the Hub, Winterglow, local nonprofits like that. You know, how can we help with revenue replacement, and what does that program look like? How do we determine, you know, how we can help, what the dollar amount is? businesses. I've been in close contact with the Barlow's people, and, their biggest thing was utility bills while they were closed. They still get a water bill just like any of us would with our homes. Luckily, they were able to take advantage of another program that I found through GSI, Restaurant Revival Program. So they were able to apply for that. I've not followed up to see if they were awarded the money. But are there businesses here near and dear to Liberty Lake that we can help? Some of them probably are hurting. We just don't know what the impact was. So it's going to require, to Annie's point about, outreach. How do we also outreach to our businesses to find out how we can help? Councilmember Kurtz, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was just listening to what you were saying, Mayor, and I think the business piece would be an important bucket to keep on there from my perspective. The technology, I think, adapting to the new world of meetings, and then public facilities and infrastructure. I think that we've got some spending priorities that we've been talking about there, and maybe some ways to have that, sort of translate into the recovery piece of it. But I think with the business piece, I think it really is important to hear from business owners what would be helpful to them. And I would imagine that each business is going to have different things that would be meaningful from them. And I understand what you're saying about current staff not having the bandwidth to try to figure that out for as many businesses as there are in Liberty Lake. The other category that I like is nonprofits. And I think that also translates into the residents piece for me. If we could be specific about some of the nonprofits that support members of our community, it would be nice to be able to either partner with them or contribute possibly some of the dollars to those agencies who serve a lot of our residents. Perhaps the schools as well. I think that they've been navigating some unprecedented challenges in this environment too. So if there's anything that we can do to support our school community, first responders, fire department. I mean, there's a lot of different agencies that may be eligible for funding in different streams, but that we could consider supporting, I think. So I'm not sure what buckets those might fit under, but those were you've got some good categories here. So I like the idea of putting things in buckets and then being able to really look at the guidance, and that might give us some more specific ideas.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Kenny, I didn't mean to skip you earlier.
No, that's fine. Not a problem. Thank you, Mayor. These 5 categories, I'm comfortable with these. I've had some time to think about this. I have not imagined something else we can throw in here. A couple of these, such as businesses or residents, I see they would work to our advantage to see if we can coordinate with some other organizations that maybe are involved with this, where the council may be able to look at this and we can take X number of dollars and say, okay, we're going to dedicate it to that organization because they can handle that. We don't have to bring staff on to be able to deal with that. The things I'm really interested in is, for me personally, is the nonprofits, technology, public facilities, and infrastructure. The nonprofits we have within the city have, over the years, done phenomenal work in raising money. Years ago, we're heavily involved with Kiwanis. I kept track of that. And Kiwanis in the South has raised in excess of $1 million, which they have given back to this community. And they just don't get the credit that they raise that kind of money that comes back in here by just hot dogs, hamburgers, and things that's right there. And of course, other organizations do the same thing, with Rotary and Lions, things of that sort there. So I think I would really like to see us focus on helping those individuals out, because in the last year, they've not been able to raise money that they have been able to raise in the past, and I think that dollar amount could go there. The other thing is the $2.4 million or 2.3 seems like a lot of money, but I think we'll be surprised how fast that will disappear. Where I say that I'm really interested in is technology, public facilities, and infrastructure. Any amount of money that we can put in those facilities there is a direct benefit to our citizens. Because as time goes on, if we don't take care of the technology, public facilities, and infrastructure with preventive maintenance and stuff, then that means we only have one choice. Where do we go to get the money? Our citizens. If they're suffering now, let's don't give them a double suffer. Let's put emphasis on technology. Dan has mentioned public facilities and infrastructure. That we can put the money into those things now and be able to move forward. So comfortable with what I see.
Councilmember Dunn.
I'd actually like to extend to the service communities and service and nonprofits in the community to step forward with what they may recognize as their total impact during this pandemic. For those organizations to step forward and introduce in real numbers how that has been an impact, that we could use that as a basis then to begin to consider how much we may be able to contribute.
And I've already talked to a couple of them, just kind of get them thinking in that direction. So we'll follow up and start having them submit some of their ideas and their numbers and where they expected to be and the effects of not being able to raise the funds they expected. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, if I could add on that also, see, just in the nonprofit situation, we have our nonprofits are able to benefit from the hotel motel tax. But of course, that industry has been off substantially. So that dollar amount percentage can be lower there. So I think Dan's idea has great merit. Those organizations come forward, and we can also look at to get some kind of an estimate we're going to get from hotel motel and what impact that would be. Maybe we can subsidize the difference that these organizations would have received.
Yeah, farmers market's a really good example. I know they get some of those bills, those hotel motel taxes. Yeah, Councilmember Foyer.
Just had a couple thoughts. I'm not excited about hiring somebody to handle the funds. As Mike pointed out, 2.3 seems like a lot of money, but it's going to go quick. However we divvy up into these buckets, all I'm going to be looking for is equal treatment. So, I want it to be local, very, very local.
Agreed.
But I don't think it's good business to treat one over the other. I'd rather, if we're having hardships with water bills, I'd rather give some funds to the utility, the water department, to help take care of everybody, not just a couple.
Well, yeah.
So as long as it's fair and equitable, that's what I'm looking for.
Understood. And as an example, at the last council meeting, what was a new 5 of the Axion cameras were approved. We found out the next day or so, Chief emailed us and let us know that those products are reimbursable through the ARP. So we need to look at opportunities like that for ourselves as well, so we can continue to provide the services that we do. Well, there's no further input. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Dunn.
In the spirit of facilities infrastructure, I'd like to bring forward the school district that supports our community. And specifically our ability to, I'd say, partner with or contribute directly to the facilities that the school district operates in order to support residents who are students in our community. They perform, in my opinion, an invaluable role in trying to equip our students and the ongoing generations. So I recognize our school district as an important component of this. It was not the recipient of this funding.
Absolutely, and I do see Superintendent Small in there, so I'll follow up with a phone call in the next few days and kind of pick his brain a little bit as well. Great point. Go ahead.
One last moment for me, I would offer. I'm reflecting on this response, I'd say, and recover piece, and that personally, in I'd say my circle of constituents, I haven't necessarily seen, I would say, adverse impact. Suffice to say, I'd say wellness, and that word kept recurring in my mind. I valued how highly important and useful this vaccination clinic has been to our community, and wellness in all the ways that word can be used. I just thought, in spirit, how can we somehow accomplish wellness for our community? How can we somehow, using these resources, deliver and improve that? And wellness, what it means for employers in terms of literally exercise and choosing right and those kinds of things, extended somehow broadly to our community.
Interesting point. Mayor Pro Tem, you had your hand up.
I would like to add to it. I think what's going to be important for us to look at is we have 5 categories here. And I think we all look at this as a $2.3 million. We're going to go through that in a heartbeat. And I think what's important is we don't do a knee-jerk reaction to quickly jump in to spend this money.
Yeah.
Because let's look at what is going to be needed and what are going to be the and set some priorities there. Because the challenge can be is if we get too rambunctious to quickly spend this money, Something may come up 6 months down the road, and we go, well, hold it, that is a major priority. And suddenly we've spent money or committed money that we can't go back and get. So I hope we use common sense as we move forward on this. This $2.3 million is coming to the citizens of Liberty Lake. The council is responsible for the budget. So we can manage the majority of this, possibly with some assistance. But I really concur also with Councilman here is that I don't want us to suddenly get another layer of government. If we have to hire somebody and pay $80,000, $90,000 a year, in my mind, I think, what could we do with that? If that's the case, I'd like to see $80,000, $90,000 go to the nonprofits that really donate their time and effort to give funds that help the citizens immediately. So I really think that we use some common sense as we move forward on it. Don't do a knee-jerk reaction on rushing out to spend this money.
Councilmember Kurtz.
I just wanted to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy about being thoughtful about it. And I guess either ask a question or just, I guess as far as when a decision about specifics, is that going to be the city that makes those decisions? Is that going to be the council that approves those things? Just so I understand kind of how things go forward. Because I hear what Mayor Pro Tem is saying about getting really excited about a project and going forward with it. But I just want to make sure that we all understand who makes those decisions. And I'm actually asking, I don't, I feel like it's a council decision, but I just want to correct me if I'm wrong about that.
I think, I mean, I absolutely agree. I would see it coming to the council, and you guys, control the issuing of that budget. So any of these funds that go out, I see coming to the council for approval. But there's a larger process, though, to your point, to consider.
Right.
Councilmember Woodruff, done.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I agree also with what Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy has said about being thoughtful and deliberate about how we spend this money. I would also like to have a chance to get input from the community and get some guidance from them, what they think their priorities are. We know from past experience, public facilities and infrastructure are important. We hear this the last couple of weeks that I've been at Farmers Market. I've definitely heard a lot about that. So I'm kind of in agreement with every guy. I don't want to see the money spent on another salary. I think we can do this. It's not, looking at our whole budget, it's really not that much money when you think about it. I know it sounds like a lot. That's certainly like the hit in my bank account. But, it's not a lot of money. We will go through it quickly, and I think we can manage that with thought and deliberation and some input from the community as well as the nonprofits, the businesses. Thank you.
Right. Mayor Pro Tem, I think, was next, and then back to Councilmember.
No, actually, no, I think it was.
Oh, Councilmember.
No, I didn't have any more.
Okay. Councilmember.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Just piggybacking off of what Councilmember Woodruff said about community engagement and businesses. I would love to see some targeted. How can we get that feedback? Sometime soon. Can we do a town hall? How do we get that feedback? And that's, again, the reason why I'm really kind of focused on the community engagement piece, because I think it's really important. Also considering what Councilman Foyer said about, making sure that something is equitable for the different businesses. So I would really love for us to think about and actually come up with a plan to engage our businesses in what they need, whether that's focus groups, whether that's a meeting, whether, inviting them in so that we can hear what it is that they need, and just, really our local businesses. In the community forums and Facebook, social media, you do hear that some of them are still struggling. And I think that if we can, maybe the money's coming in phases, maybe what we do with it comes in phases. I don't know. But I feel a little rambly here, but I'm just really wanting to make sure that we're actually asking people for input and making sure that we are responsive to that.
And we do have a master list of all the businesses. I've already been reaching out to a handful on a random basis. There's got to be either through, I don't know, I know we don't have an updated master email list, but we do have a list of all the businesses you know, if we reach out that way to start, and heck, you know, I'm all for sitting down and splitting up the list, you know, starting to make phone calls and knocking on doors. I think you're gonna get a better response from people if you get them in person, whether it's on a phone call or setting up a meeting to get their feedback, because it just drives more conversation instead of sending a letter or an email with some questions. So, you know, definitely some food for thought. Councilmember Dunn?
Just to operationalize, you know, as Annie has observed, what does this look like? I would expect we would consider a budget amendment that would reflect specific spending on a specific activity. So that's how this would be manifest when we're coming to take action.
And Councilman Kurtz, before I get back to you, Kyle, I know you're on here. I know you and I had talked about setting up a separate fund, obviously, for tracking all of this. Is that what you're still thinking as well?
Certainly. Yep. Yeah, we would set up a separate, separate line items for sure, so we can track, you know, where all of this is going.
And that takes in setting up that fund, if I remember correctly, will take a council approval, correct?
So we had a holdover from last year from the CARES Act fund that still kind of falls into that same guidance. And so we can put, you know, obviously we can account for the revenue when it comes in. And then it would just be as simple as kind of, you know, further identifying what goes where on the expenditure side when that time comes.
We'll just rely on Kyle to help guide us through that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I want to remind all of us is that keep in mind that when it comes to businesses, the government has set up, since this started, many different programs that benefit businesses. Loans that can be forgiven. There's just a lot of things there for business could go out and get funding, whereas technology, there is nothing. Nonprofits, there is nothing. Public facilities and infrastructure, there is nothing. So let's keep in mind as we move forward on businesses that these businesses do have access to funds now. Thank you.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point that I brought up earlier, that, you know, we need to figure out where are those gaps that are already being filled, what's already being filled, and where are the gaps where we can help. Lots more discussions to be had. Councilmember Kurtz?
Yeah, and I think that having conversations of some sort of form with more than one business at a time would help them learn what resources are out there. I know it's not particularly our job to educate them. I think some of it is, you know, their job to figure out what resources, what funding streams are available, what their colleagues are doing in town as well, because there are some funding sources out there. I think they just may not always know what those are. And so when we're talking about filling in the gaps, I think that's part of the conversation, right? Like if we're pick business A and we're looking at doing something for them, asking those questions about some of those other things that they've either partaken in or are eligible for. But I really think it's important for more than one person to be the point of contact for all this. I would really like to hear from as many business owners as I could about it in order to make a good decision about how to move forward. And so I think that's what I'm asking for, is the opportunity for us as council members, however that is. I don't know that that's me knocking on doors, maybe it is, but having a conversation with more than one business owner at a time, so that a good decision, good thoughts, good feedback can all be taken into consideration by the council.
Councilmember Severs, you've been kind of quiet. I'm giving you an opportunity to jump in.
I think these have been great conversations. I just look forward to the application process here, and it's already been said, so I won't waste too much breath on it. But I think that the point is equity, and the number one thing I'm gonna be looking for is that people are actually affected by COVID, and they can show us numbers or something along those lines of the application process to prove they were affected by COVID, to make sure these dollars are being used for their intended meaning.
And that's where I get nervous about staff having bandwidth to go through those things. And so the more partners that we can find who already have processes set up for that, the better. And we'll keep digging into what those resources are. There's no more discussion?
No, so Mayor, just a real quick question. So this is really good. If something comes to mind and there's another bucket that's not on here, let us know. But as we get information, this will be an ongoing dialogue, how's that? And as we get information, we'll just kind of put it on into a workshop, so we can fine tune it. Maybe at some point, we'd want a kind of a special meeting just on this subject because it is a very large subject.
Yep. Got it. Okay. So, moving on, we do have our next workshop discussion on the Country Vista speed limit. Chief Simmons and Ben Schmidt, our city engineer, will be presenting that.
All right.
Chief, Chief is on mute.
Sorry, I was on a telephone call with Sergeant Jones.
Okay.
So,
Did you want us to hold?
No, I'm ready.
Good, okay. All right, so we'll leave this to you and Ben.
So I'm happy to go ahead and kick it off a little bit. So there has been some discussion on the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. This is along Country Vista, pretty much the corridor that covers the flyover, the new Ridgeline High School. But basically, to give everybody kind of an overview of everything that's going on, there is basically existing 35-mile-per-hour speed limits on the western side, and then existing 35-mile-per-hour speed limits on the eastern side, with a 45-mile-per-hour zone through the center, essentially between those two. And so in discussions about potentially lowering this to 35, I just wanted to let everybody know from an engineering perspective that we can do that as long as we have an engineering study that supports that. And the way that those studies typically work is that you look at the 85th percentile speed. And that's basically what it means is if you look at any particular section of roadway, you count 85% of the vehicles that go through that and what the natural speed is that they travel along there. And then speed limits are typically set at that particular speed. So you can imagine if you've got a roadway that's small with a lot of traffic calming, people can't move very fast. So you'd set that speed limit closer to 25 miles per hour, where if you have, an interstate is kind of the opposite example. There's two lanes, big separation between them, people will move a lot faster there. So in discussion with Chief Simmons, we've looked at kind of a couple different options on how to approach this methodically and with engineering judgment. And so what we can do is, if we were to do the study now as is in its current state, there wouldn't be any engineering, there'd be a high likelihood there wouldn't be any engineering basis for lowering the speed limit, because most of the vehicles there move at 45 miles an hour or faster. So what we were thinking was that once the Kramer Parkway signals installed and the Ridgeline signals installed, we would also put up it's not a school zone, it's essentially a school area, and they're basically advisory signs that show that there's a school in the area, be aware. These kind of help slow people down a little bit. And then so you can see the two signs that are proposed here. We've got one towards the front entrance of the high school, where it's coming up to the signal, and then another one saying that when they do turn onto the new roadway towards the high school, that they're going to be entering a school zone in there. So it will hopefully bring a lot of awareness in conjunction with the signal. And then we can also install a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit sign. These can be interchanged in the future, but basically it's a flashing one, just like kind of we have set up at Mission for the roundabout. So it makes drivers aware that this is what the speed limit is set at. And once we have done all these things, then we can look at performing the study. And so just to give everybody kind of a bigger grand picture of what's going to be going on in 2024 and 2025, there's about $3 million of improvements allocated in the Transportation Improvement Plan. And those are for traffic calming measures, turn lanes. Those will be in conjunction with frontage improvements and intersections by private developers as this area builds out. And so when that's all designed, that will very likely give clear engineering merit towards lowering it down to 35. Was there anything I missed, Chief Simmons, that you'd like to jump in on?
No, I think you covered it all. A lot of this was also research looking at comparable roads with a comparable speed limit throughout Spokane and Kootenai County, including schools such as Mount Spokane, Central Valley, schools where the signage is similar. The speed limit hasn't been reduced for a school zone. So there was some comparables used in this assessment as well.
Any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Dunn.
Yeah, as perhaps the related pending subdivision of Central Valley School District property currently occupied by the gun club. Is there any connection planned or considered to Country Vista from that platting?
I'm not aware of it. Lisa, are you aware of it? Any planning?
Yeah, so actually we got a comment from Spokane County today regarding that. And because the county owns the old Milwaukee Railroad right-of-way along the frontage of Apple Way in that area, they're not going to be allowing any access off of Apple Way.
So in terms of access, what's been presented here visually, we cannot really project will significantly change, with the exceptions of driveways to support the adjacent commercial properties.
Well, there can be access spread out every 300 feet along. Sorry. And then the other thing that's really important in the improvements along Country Vista is those center islands and the turn bays essentially in between those, because when you have that boulevard set up with the trees and the pedestrian improvements on the side and those center islands, those are all very effective traffic calming measures that slow people down, even if the roadway alignment doesn't necessarily change, which would affect that 85th percentile calculation when the study was done.
Question, Ben, is the sidewalks adjacent Country Vista Boulevard on its southern side, are those 6 foot?
I believe they are 5 foot, but I haven't measured those yet, but that's a good question and I can follow up with that.
So one thing I could foresee, novel as it is thought, we are a golf cart community, not making it up. And I'm thinking there's high school students that are going to try to get to this high school in the golf cart. And I just gotta say, I don't think a 6 foot sidewalk is going to support that. And these kids are going to try and get out there on the street, and you know what's going to happen. So I guess I'd look carefully, speed as an impact, but how our adjacent pedestrian improvements could support that outcome. So I personally think a 5 foot sidewalk is a little insufficient for what we believe is potentially the movement of pedestrians back and forth from the residential neighborhoods and the Liberty Lake to the west along Country Vista.
I agree with you completely. And as part of those improvements with the center island, I mean, the center islands with the trees and the turn bays and everything, that's the real traffic calming measure. But as far as improvements, the basically boulevard cross section of roadway that we have that shows the path and connectivity, that's all part of the improvements that could be done there with those modifications to ensure that we did have a wide enough pathway for pedestrians, cyclists, and the golf carts to commute. And it would tie in especially well with the Kramer Bridge project to link those systems together, where you basically have links from the western edge of the city all the way across. It's just all how that's coordinated with the developer through their frontage improvements. But yes, your point is well taken that as part of that sidewalk master plan, we need to identify what exactly would go into those improvements.
Yeah, the speed limit, I think the studies indicated, I fully support, and it's found in your justification. My suggestion is to follow on that with, the movement of pedestrians, in my opinion, is not necessarily adequate, or would need revisiting.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment. I think it's an excellent observation from Councilman Dunn, and Ben, you quickly say, it's a great idea, but can it be done? Are we too far down the road that we can't go from the 5 foot or whatever it's going to be to a 7 or 8 foot?
No, not at all. The benefit of this is that when those improvements are done, the stormwater that was essentially designed along that corridor can be reworked and changed depending on what developer goes in there, what easements they want to set up. There is enough room, it appears, in the right of way to incorporate those changes. And it's a matter of just grading and adding on. There's lots of options there to be able to do that. The right of way is the big issue usually in most construction projects when you're looking at expanding facilities. And from what we have there, it's a huge right of way that can incorporate a lot of different change.
Thanks, Ben. So because it's a good observation and you agree with that, and I think the rest of the council and staff would probably agree. So can we assume that that's going to be, let's say, on the priority list as we move forward, that the emphasis is trying to make those sidewalks wider?
Yes, and that would be identified in that sidewalk master plan. That's kind of the first step. And then finding out how those funds need to be allocated that are identified in the transportation improvement plan for those improvements, what percentage goes to that and what percentage goes to the improvements, and how that can all be cost shared with the developers, whoever decides to build that out there. The real catalyst behind all those improvements, I think, is going to be the high school once it opens, because there's a lot of business opportunity there. And so I would predict that developers will come in quickly once that school is completed. So it can accelerate that. But yes, identifying that as a priority up front through that sidewalk master plan is a big priority. And that goes for the entire city, but we can look at that specifically in this area.
Thanks, Ben.
Councilmember Foyer?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm clear, the intent is to keep the speed limit at 45.
Correct, with the short term until the 2 signals and the signage have gone in, and then we can address if we want to do the study. But we don't want to waste the money on the study to have it not justify lowering the speed limit, is trying to be effective with that spending.
Glad you brought up the study, because didn't we just have one that gave us a bunch of traffic count information?
Network analysis. Is that speed?
But it wasn't speed, but it has the traffic, the amount of traffic that goes up and down that road 24/7. Can we not utilize that information for your process?
So turning movements for designing the intersections and designing whether we want a signal or a roundabout or something like that, or what capacity the road has is, as I understand it, a little bit different. And we'd be happy to bring parametrics on to discuss that again. But really, for a specific study for that roadway, you need to do a particular count of what that speed is, because I don't believe there was they addressed posted speed and how many vehicles move throughout different turning movements each day, but they didn't address, what is the 85th percentile speed along every single one of these roadways.
Focus of the network, can I, hopefully I have some additional information. The focus of the network study was to identify intersections and the operation of those intersections as opposed to speed.
And I believe the result of that was nothing but stoplights, which I hate that idea, but that's what the result of, that's what the recommendation was stoplights all up and down that road.
Well, okay, so the recommendation, because of the pedestrian component.
Right.
And because of the volume, not the speed, but the volume, and the land uses, the recommendation at Legacy and at Kramer was both traffic signals.
And at the high school was all traffic lights.
The traffic, I believe the decision on the traffic signal for the high school was made a couple of years before.
Okay, but my point is, we're already going to be adding stop traffic lights to that corridor. Per an analysis that we already paid for. So I'm questioning why we need another one.
It's volume versus, speed versus capacity and operation.
Well,
Different analysis.
The only logical place, and I'm no street engineer or volume of traffic guy or anything like that, I drive up and down that road a lot, but the only logical place I can see is another light between the high school and Kramer. Because other than that, you're just gonna bog down traffic. So my question is, do we need a survey for the speed limit discussion when you can look at the length of the road and at some point, we're probably gonna add another stoplight in there based on whatever businesses come into the corridor.
Yeah, I don't think
Or maybe not, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm just,
You're bringing up a great point, and it would certainly be more efficient to use a study that's already been done, that we don't have to recreate. The difference is there's a MUTCD, which is the Uniform Traffic Manual, requires warrants, which is an analysis, in order to change speed limits, and that's what Ben was referring to. Ben, why don't you and I get together and we can discuss that? I do want to mention, though, I'm not aware of a need for another traffic signal between Kramer and the high school.
Correct.
Ben, are you? I'm not.
No, and
Yeah,
if I
so-
can come in a little bit, so the way I think about it between the two signals is this is essentially set up as a signal for like a state highway. The spacing, it's around 3,000 feet between the Ridgeline signal and the Kramer Parkway signal. And so if you can imagine you're stopped at that light and you get up to speed, it's pretty easy to get up to 45 miles per hour. I think we've all probably done it when we go up to the state highway speeds on some of the highways around here. That's a pretty common distance to be able to get up to that speed. So if we were to do the study, we would still see that most of those vehicles can get up to that 85th percentile speed, even between the lights. So like you say, you can either add a light, which would congest traffic, or you can do traffic calming measures, which are already identified in the traffic improvement plan. And those will slow people down as they leave the light to keep them around that 35 mile per hour speed until they get to the next one. So there's not really a need that I've seen identified in any of the studies that would say that we need an additional light. The main need that we need is the traffic calming measures with the turn bays and the islands and the frontage improvements there with the trees to slow people down. And that's where the study would really justify that.
okay, can I refer back to a conversation? I wasn't at this table when it happened, but we changed that speed limit to 35 many years ago and got a lot of pushback because and the reason being we got the pushback was there's nothing out there. Now we have a high school, but other than the high school, there's really still not a lot out there yet. And I agree, with the high school, it'll come, right? So at some point, we're probably gonna change the speed limit because of the activity out there. So my question, I don't know how much this report or this engineer study would cost, but do we really need to spend the money to do an engineer study when, as it gets built out, we're gonna make a decision to change the speed limit?
And I think that's what we were saying,
That's
where
what
they're
I
not going to, they're not wanting to do it now because the natural speed is higher. I mean, imagine taking the average speed, I mean, it would probably suggest that we move it up to 60.
Why do we need a study?
Well, hold on,
Good question.
but the question, but I think where Ben was going with this is, once the other things go in, once the Ridgeline High School signal will be in, Legacy will be in, the Kramer Parkway signal will be in, the street improvements will be in, and those will all naturally reduce people's speed, but they still need the study at that point, 2-3 years down the road, whenever it happens, to justify lowering the speed limit.
So we went from, it was
We
45, we went down to 35, we went back up to 45, and we didn't do a study. So what we will do, Councilmember Poyer, we will confirm whether or not a study is required.
Well, I wasn't around when we reduced it to 35, but I was around when we moved it up to 45, and the study was done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to clarify, my whole intent is to keep it at 45 and not waste the money on the study until it can actually be justified. And so this plan that I'm showing right here is a good first step to put everything in place, see what the roadway looks like. I think intuitively, without doing a study, we can take a look at what speed people are moving at and get a general feel. If everybody's still moving at that 85th percentile and that happens to be 45, and then if we want to say, yes, we can move forward with the study to justify lowering it, we can do it at that time. Or we can say everybody's still moving pretty quickly through here. Let's wait until the 2024, 2025 frontage improvements all go into effect and then do the study again. And then that study will justify, or just do the study for the first time, and that study would justify lowering it down. So the intent is not to spend money on an additional study at the wrong time. So we want to do this incrementally to keep getting a feel as this builds out when the appropriate time is to do the study to lower the speed limit. But I think if we did the study now, it would show that 45 is still merited.
One other question, okay, Mayor. Regarding the sidewalk expansion or widening that's been suggested, I think about the current sidewalk we have from Kramer all the way back to the Chevron station. Do we have the capacity to make this, if you're gonna widen the sidewalk from Kramer down to the high school, and I'm assuming beyond to the city limits, do we have the ability to do that same width clean on back to the center of town?
So that's an excellent question as well. And that actually ties into our stormwater management plan that we got grant funding for. Because when all that stormwater was built out along Country Vista, there was essentially a lot of overbuild to handle treatment for different design storms that are, in discussing with other engineers, too big for the area. So the good thing is we have all the right of way. And when we look at that stormwater master plan to see what of those swales we actually need versus what's existing, at that time we can say that maybe some of those swales don't need to be as big as they actually were built out to be. And that gives us a lot of room to widen the sidewalks and make bigger bike paths along that whole section. So I'm very optimistic that that study will justify being able to shrink a lot of those swale sizes so that we can make those connections all the way through from the west end of town all the way along the Country Vista corridor.
That's great, because I wouldn't want to see a mirror of what happens on the freeway where it's 2 lanes to 1 with golf carts. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on. We are now at general business. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to ask a question if I can, because I was trying to look at this. At what point can I ask this question? And I think this is as good a spot as any. It's not a workshop discussion, but this. I would like to ask the council, is that when do we feel we want to be back into this building? You know, the majority of us that are here, we saw a few that aren't here. You know, is it going to be the end of this month, June? This is what I'd like to see from the council. When do we want to be here?
Well, I know we're still dealing with certain things because of the HVAC system. Katie, do you want to address that?
Yes, so we're still getting an evaluation of our error handling system. But let me say it this way, Mayor, if the council members want to come back, we can accommodate them. Some of us will have to move out of this area, but we can accommodate council if they choose to come back physically to the building. The public part of it will continue to be remote.
Right.
At this time.
I would like to throw out there for council's consideration is that, you know, we set a goal at the end of June, July 1, or our first meeting in July, that we are back in this building, all of us. Council?
I'm good. I've been coming here anyway, so.
That's so fine. Dog doesn't bark when I'm here.
I'd like to see the city hall like open for business for regular operations as we think of for not just meetings, but interactions with other parts. Me, when we welcome, I guess, our community here, we're here too.
Let me look at the calendar here quick with regards to council meetings. So our first meeting in July would be the 6th, right after 4th of July. Does that date you're looking at maybe targeting, Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm just throwing that out for discussion, is that let's pick a date and work towards it. If it has to be adjusted, we can always do that, but let's see if we can move forward. I think everybody would agree is that for most of us who've been back in here, the meetings are really very productive, very productive.
I don't hear any objections, so let's just kind of let's shoot for that. Let's kind of keep pace on where we are with regards to guidance and the HVAC and, you know, how we'll need to make sure things are set up here. I know we still, if everybody remembers the last meeting, we had a bit of a feedback issue, which we have figured out, but the more people we have in here, the more chance of that happening. So when we do all get back here, we want to make sure we're here 5:30 or so to make sure everybody's set up correctly. And please, everybody, remember to use your microphones when we are sitting kind of far back and we're still getting some comments about not being able to hear. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're going to general business. General business item, consent agenda, motion to approve May 18th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. And item 2, approve the June 1st, 2021 vouchers in the amount of $264,391.31.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilmember Woodruff. Discussion. Councilmember Foyer?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is that on? There we
That's
go.
better.
Oh, there we go. Get in here. I have a few questions on the check register, if I can. Maybe this one's for Lisa. I noticed that we spent $7,800 towards the city of Cheney for plan review assistance. Just wondering how that's going. Is it worth our money? Are they being helpful? Are they easing up your burden? Where are we at there?
So we had the city of Cheney review 3 large commercial plans to alleviate the load. At this point, we are not using them because we have kind of evened out the workflow. It was just that we got hit with a whole bunch of commercial projects as of the change of the building code to 2018 code. Everybody was trying to get in under the old code, and that created kind of a backlog for us. So, but moving forward, we will be going out for an RFP for, rather than going through Cheney's contract, we'll be going out for an RFP directly for an on-call commercial plan review and building inspection to deal with these, the ebbs and flows of our work program, because we are busier than we have been in our history. And we are constantly struggling to keep up with the plan reviews. And again, we will only use that resource as a backup as we did, but we are, right now, we still have the contract in place, but we haven't been using them because we haven't needed to.
It was helpful.
Yeah. And a quick comment for the public, that is cost recovery. We are outsourcing that, but the permit fees and whatnot does cover that cost.
It does.
Okay, a few others if I can.
Sure.
Thank you. So one of the line items, 1892, bacon concrete for some water line repair. We don't have any major structural water repair problems on any of our buildings, do we?
Jen, is that under Jen? Jen?
It just says building and structures. It doesn't say which building or anything like that. So I don't care about, I'm not concerned about the $1,000, but if we have a bacon concrete tells me that it's under a sidewalk or concrete of some kind.
So if you walk outside Kyle's door, there's some new sidewalk there. Underneath that, we have an irrigation leak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
irrigation.
irrigation and report sidewalk.
So it wasn't a major failure or anything like that. Nothing we have to worry about down the road. Thank you. My next question, maybe for Kyle, line 1896 under Continental Contractors for $171,000. I know it says progress billing and all that, but it just says capital expenditures. I'm just wondering what project?
Pavilion Park.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not Kyle.
We sure don't look like him.
And then, I don't know if I'll bring this up. I'll bring it up. On item 1923, where it says we spent, that's not the dollar amount, $162 for some training on how to manage a younger workforce.
Heidi, do you want to address that? I believe that was the workshop that you went to on HR.
Okay, so that was for,
That was for Stephen Williams, I believe,
Okay,
for Public Works.
I guess I was, the term how to manage a younger workforce kind of caught me off guard there a little bit, that's all. Workforce is a workforce, but okay.
Trust me, it's different.
I guess. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on vouchers or minutes? All right, not hearing any, or did we have a we didn't have a second, did we? Oh, yeah, Councilmember Woodruff did. Sorry, so all in favor of general business consent agenda numbers 1 and 2, please say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item B, action items. Motion to accept donation from Greenstone Foundation, in the amount of $5,000 for an improvement to the Rotary Snack Shack at Rocky Hill Park.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Dunn. Any discussion? Just reminder, this is an in-kind donation, not a cash donation.
I have a question.
Sure,
Actually,
Tim.
I was contacted by 2 individuals today, separate, that asked me about this here. And their question was, it says Rotary Snack Shack. Well, I know our concession stand that we have here is not Kiwanis. Anybody can utilize that. So that building is owned by the city?
it was originally constructed by Rotary, donated by Rotary to the city. So as we speak, the city is the owner of that building, but originally it was built and donated by Rotary. So that's hence the name.
So I know, personally, I have no challenge with calling Rotary Snack Shack, but any organization could utilize that, same as with our concession stand.
Oh, yeah.
Very good, yeah. So that was their question, so I'm happy with that.
Any other questions or discussions on action item 1? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor of approving the donation, say aye. Oh,
Aye.
hold on a second. I just didn't catch her hand. Did you have a question, Amy?
No, I was voting. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Sorry, we'll redo that. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 2, motion to accept donation from Dennis and Suzanne Ruth Scott in the amount of $1,100 for a park bench with a plaque to be placed in the Arboretum.
Second. And seconded by Councilmember Woodruff. Any questions? Not seeing or hearing any. All in favor of accepting the donation for the bench, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, motion to award the purchase of a server contract to the lowest responsive quote. This purchase is time sensitive. As mentioned earlier, that is SCW Company.
Second. Moved and seconded by Councilmember Woodruff. Any questions or discussion on the server?
Question.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Do we have a dollar amount estimate on this? I know it's in our budget for 2021. Is there a dollar amount because?
28,000, but I'm gonna have Todd to.
Yeah, let's make,
28,000. And that's going to replace all of our servers we've had at this point?
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, move motion second. Any further discussion? All right, those in favor of awarding the purchase of a server contract in the amount of $28,000, please say aye.
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 Oh, I wait for Hugh there. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Last one.
Very good. Item number 4, confirm mayor's appointment to the Salary Commission, which is Mr. Mark Saba.
Second. And seconded by Councilmember Woodruff. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment for and benefit Mr. Saba here. I approached the mayor months ago after Councilman Woodruff became a council member, and I brought Mark Saba's name forward because not only because he's donated a lot of his time over a period of time, as most people probably realize, every Friday he goes out with his golf cart, picks up garbage and things of that sort there. So he's been an individual, like many individuals in this town, who donate a lot of their time and effort. the thing that caught my attention most, why I wanted to bring his name forward, and I'm very pleased that the mayor interviewed him and selected him, is that Mark always demonstrated to me that he had an open mind with the idea of looking at getting all the answers before he would make a decision. So that's a great quality that is really needed for the salary commission. And I hope that's a quality he continues to have while he's on that commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Mark being part of the commission, which will convene very soon. We want to have them convene, have their meetings and public hearings if needed prior to budget being put together. So Mark, you have anything to say? I'm looking forward to you being on the team. Okay. Right, he's trying.
I don't really have anything to say except thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mark. All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the appointment of Mark Saba to the Salary Commission, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. All right, next is a public hearing on Central Valley School District's annexation request. Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. As we're waiting for Todd to bring up the presentation, there it is. So this is a public hearing tonight to accept public testimony on a proposed annexation by Central Valley School District. Todd, can you please go to the next slide? So the school district has requested to commence annexation and has actually petitioned for it. With the subject property is located west of Ridgeline High School, north of Sprague Avenue. And if you can see from the picture, a portion of that are ball fields. A portion of the ball fields are actually already in our city, and a portion are within the unincorporated county. The current zoning for the subject property in Spokane County is industrial, and Central Valley School District is requesting an R2 zone. The R2 zone would allow for the development of an elementary school or a middle school. It also allows for housing, a mixed variety of housing types. Next slide, please. Just wanted to point out to you that the surrounding zoning and allowed densities in Spokane Valley to the west, that property is all in R3 zone, which allows 6 units per acre, single family or duplex. To the south is Spokane County unincorporated with a low density residential zone, which again allows 6 units per acre. The Liberty Lake R2 zone actually provides for a variety of housing types with 6 to 12 units per acre. Just to give you just by way of comparison, our R1 zone, our single family zone, detached allows for a detached 4 to 6 units per acre, and single family and attached single family 4 to 8 units per acre. So the big difference between the two zones is that in the R1 zone, elementary schools are allowed, but not necessarily middle schools. Next slide, please. So I wanted to point out to you, our comprehensive plan has a policy very specific to annexations, and that proposed annexations should be based on the following criteria: the ability to provide public services at the city's adopted level of service, and whether annexation would eliminate an unincorporated island or could be expanded to eliminate an unincorporated island. In this particular case, it actually does, because this property is basically an island between the city of Liberty Lakes western boundary right now and Spokane Valley's eastern boundary. Whether the annexation would follow logical boundaries such as streets, waterways, parcels, sections, or substantial topographic features, we believe it does. and whether the annexation would eliminate an irregularity or irregularities in the city's boundaries, thereby improving service delivery. I don't think that's necessarily applicable here. And its consistency with the goals and policies of the comp plan. And next slide, please. So here's our procedural timeline. The Central Valley School District submitted their letter of intent to annex on the 27th, and on April 6th, you City Council gave your authorization to proceed with the annexation process. And on April 27th, Central Valley School District did submit their petition to annex. So we did send out notices, and the site was posted between the dates of May 21st and May 24th. It was published in the paper, etc. And we have now 2 hearings. This is the first of 2 hearings. The second hearing will be on July 6th. And we will not actually be bringing an ordinance back for you to take action on until July 20th, with the second read on August 3rd. Now, as you may remember from our last annexation, once the ordinance goes into effect and we file it with the state agencies and the county entities that we need to file with, there's still a 60-day waiting period before the annexation actually goes into effect. Next slide, please. So we are in the midst of the SEPA review. When we sent out the notices for the hearing, we did also start the SEPA review process. A couple things that I need to point out to you. So under SEPA, the annexation is actually exempt from SEPA. It's the designation of the comp plan, land use and zoning that actually requires SEPA, but it's considered a non-project review. What that means is this is a legislative action. There's not going to be any projects that are going to come forward as a result of this particular action. There's no ground that's going to be disturbed. There's no traffic that's going to be created. And I want to also point out that any subsequent actions will be subject to project-specific SEPA reviews. So if the school district moves forward with constructing an elementary school or a middle school, that would be subject to SEPA, as would anything related to the subdivision for another type of development. And I wanted to let you know that because this is a non-legislative action, and that we are expected to issue a determination of non-significance on June 4th. And following that, there's a 14-day appeal period. Once the appeal period ends, I should say the appeal period will have ended before your second hearing. Next slide, please. So we have received a few comments to date. We did receive comments from Randy Abrahamson, who is the Cultural Resource Officer for the Spokane Tribe, and he did request a cultural resource survey be conducted. And again, because this is a non-project action, we will simply be requiring that, that a cultural resource survey be conducted as part of any subsequent projects. We also received comments from Diane Barney, who is a Spokane Valley resident, who expressed concerns regarding traffic from additional homes accessing East Sprague Avenue. And another comment from Nathan Weirman, who is also a resident of Spokane Valley, expressing concerns regarding the potential traffic impacts at the intersection of Sprague Avenue and Barker Road. Again, these types of comments would have to be addressed through a project-specific SEPA, but at this point, this is just a legislative action. Finally, the fourth comment we got was from Spokane County, indicating that that they own the right-of-way for the former Milwaukee Railroad that they're trying to preserve for a rail corridor, and as such, they will not be allowing any access across that right-of-way. to access Appleway Avenue. And again, those are all issues that would have to be addressed as part of any project. I did want to point out that the written comments that we have received, you will get in your packet for the next hearing, but several of these actually came in today. Next slide, please. And so unless you have any questions for me, we do have Todd Hume here representing Central Valley School District. And following Todd's presentation, Ben Small, the superintendent of Central Valley School District, will have a few words to say also. Questions for me?
Lisa, do you want me to go ahead and open the public hearing before they start, or is this considered before the public hearing? Just want to make sure I get that right.
Actually, they're the applicants, so they should be given the opportunity to present before we open the public hearing.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Todd Hume speaking on behalf of Central Valley School District and on behalf of Central Valley's annexation request. I don't have a lot of detail to add to what Lisa just explained. And I think you've already entertained, you being the city council, have already entertained the notice to annex. And so I know everyone's aware of the property and what the annexation request is. I wanted to take a couple minutes and just talk about the context of which this request arrives to you in, and the history behind some of the other entitlement and annexation actions that have taken place out there. If you, Lisa or Todd, could you go back to the map of the overall area that we're talking about, the annexation request area? Yeah, okay, there we go. That area you see there in red is what we kind of consider the gun club proper. Is about 60 acres in size. And if you were on Scout and you were to zoom out on that area, you'd notice that it is really a remnant of light industrial zone property under Spokane County zoning scheme that is left over from, I think, probably when the city of Spokane Valley incorporated. It's really the only piece of light industrial in the area. There's a little bit still up on Trent. But this is kind of it. And so it is truly orphaned, and it's squeezed in between the city of Spokane Valley, which is all the density you see to the west, and then the new school site to the east. So we're taking a piece of property. What we'd like to do is take a piece of property out of the light industrial category. The light industrial, just to give you a sense, the light industrial category allows things like concrete production, contractors' yards, auction yards, vehicle impoundment, kennels, sewer treatment plants, solid waste disposal. It's all those types of uses that aren't exactly heavy industrial, but they're obviously, probably, I shouldn't say obviously, but they're not really compatible with the residential uses and the school uses that they're squeezed into right now. In between right now. So we're trying to take this orphan piece of county property, and we believe that it's a logical boundary for the city of Liberty Lake to incorporate back to the city of Spokane Valley line. Lisa went through a couple of some of the criteria that are in your comp plan. I want to touch on those in a moment. But let me hit real quickly on the history of what's happened out there also. In 2018, some of you will recall that we annexed into the city of Liberty Lake, but we're sort of considering the high school proper site. That's the property that you can see in the picture there that's under construction just to the east of the annexation request area. That same year in 2018, we also annexed the high school proper and then the gun club proper into CID's service area. So Consolidated Irrigation District now has within that entire area the legal ability to provide it with sewer and water. You'll remember that we requested a public zoning on the high school piece, on the high school proper site. We did that because the public zoning allowed for increased height, and we needed that for the high school buildings. High school buildings exceed the height that was otherwise allowed in the residential zones. And so that's why we asked for the public zoning. The current request you have is for R2, which, as Lisa points out, allows elementary schools, as does R1, but it also allows middle schools, whereas R1 doesn't allow middle schools. And I think Superintendent Small can speak to this better than I can, but at this point, I think the district is uncertain what the future plans are for school siting on that area, but they want to maintain the ability to be flexible as the district grows. And so it's important for the zoning, it's important for the property to have the flexibility to have both an elementary school and or a middle school that could be sited on that property. That's really what's driving the R2 request as opposed to an R1. There is the possibility, I'm going to be upfront about this, there is the possibility that there is a remnant piece that is left over and then gets carved off and surplus and sold. But at this point, the district doesn't have any plans to surplus any of it until they understand what their future needs are. The criteria that Lisa went through in the comprehensive plan, number one, the ability to provide public services. Again, that entire area is under CIDs, is in their service area under their jurisdiction. We believe that the city's ability and CID's ability to provide service to this parcel, should it be annexed, is sufficient. Two, whether the annexation would eliminate an unincorporated island or be expanded to eliminate an unincorporated island. If you look at that piece in light of the zoning maps, the respective zoning maps, the city valley to the west, the piece that we're talking about, and then the city of Liberty Lake to the east, you've got three jurisdictions that are within about 1,500 feet of each other. So we're really trying to eliminate that island of light industrial zoned property. Whether the annexation would follow logical boundaries, such as streets, waterways, parcels, or sections, the code says. And you'll notice that the break between the city of Spokane Valley and the gun club property is right on a section line. So the request complies with that as well. Whether the annexation would eliminate an irregularity or irregularities in the city's boundaries or improve service delivery. I go back to the conversation you all were having about half an hour ago regarding frontage improvements and sidewalks. You have kids that will walk from the city of Spokane Valley into this high school site. And yet you have a jurisdiction, the county, that you don't have any control over, and you can't, and you won't have any ability to otherwise require frontage improvements, et cetera, on this light industrially zoned piece. We believe that if you bring all this into the city, you'll have greater sort of code control over what happens there, and you can extend that boundary naturally out to the west to meet the city of Spokane Valley's boundary. And then finally, the consistency with the goals and policies of the comp plan. I think over the next couple of hearings, we'll talk a lot about that, but we also believe that it's consistent with the goals and policies of the comp plan. And I think that is really all I need to talk to you about. Are there any questions? I'd like to give Ben a chance to speak up here too. Are there any questions that you have for us about the request?
Councilmember Foyer.
Sure, thank you. I just have one question on the utilities. Who's providing those, sewer and water?
Consolidated Irrigation District.
There's no opportunity to look up with Liberty Lake sewer and water?
No, it's already within their jurisdiction, and so I don't believe there's any way that we can unannex at this point.
Councilmember Kurt.
One of my questions was on the page 4 of the annexation packet that was in our packet. And it talked about the R2 zone. It said there were no less than 12 units, but then it also said a maximum of 12 units. And I wasn't sure with the R2 zone which one it is, because it did say both in the packet.
It actually is both. For single family detached homes,
Okay.
the the maximum is 12 units. For single family detached, the maximum is 12 units. It does also allow for small scale multifamily. And I believe that the minimum for multifamily is 12 units per acre.
Okay, and that would be where the no less than 12 units comes from?
Yes.
Okay. I had one more question if I can, and I don't know if now is the right time to do this because I haven't been through this process before. But when we had our original presentation from you, Lisa, we talked about the difference between an R1 and an R2, and that the school district's request was they wanted to have the flexibility to build a middle school and an elementary school, but that's prohibited in R1. But that there was the possibility that we could still have it zoned as R1 and have an exception for the middle school. Is it now the time to talk about that?
Yeah, so if the council so desired, because this is an annexation, you do have the ability to potentially require a development agreement as a condition of annexation. And a development agreement could limit the types of uses that would otherwise be allowed in the zone. So that is an option that council can certainly consider. And I would anticipate that that by the end of the second hearing, you might give some indication what direction you want to go so that we could prepare the ordinance accordingly. But an example would be that the development agreement would prohibit, it would be all uses that are allowed in the R2 zone except multifamily, as an example.
Okay.
So that's an option that you have as a council.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we go to Ben? Okay, you're on.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council and city staff and City Administrator Katie Allen. One of the things that we are trying to do as a school district is be prepared for a future that we know is a still growing future for the Central Valley School District. We believe that our enrollment projections are that we'll have 17,500 students in the next by 2029 in our district. That's a 3,000 student increase, 21% increase over our current enrollment. And what we also understand and know is that enrollment certainly will ebb and flow with what happens with development in this region. The housing market has a tremendous impact on us as a school district, but we also know that timing is important, and we really realize that with Ridgeline High School, and very proud of the fact that we're building Ridgeline High School in the city of Liberty Lake because of your ability to annex in a timely fashion and change the zoning from light industrial to public in order for us to build what I think will be a community asset across the valley, but specifically for Liberty Lake. So you might say, why now? Why would you want to annex this now? Why is the reason? Well, we know that this year has been really interesting, and we know that virtual learning has become something that some of our families may take advantage of, but we also know that that's a little volatile, and our parents are making choices to return to in-person learning or stay in virtual, and we have to prepare for the best case scenario of most of those children returning. And it's our belief by the year 2026, we will need another elementary school in the Central Valley School District, and then looking at another middle school by that 2029 date. And so we have to prepare now. And that's the purpose for us to work with the city of Liberty Lake. You've got very timely annexation rules. You've got very timely rezone rules. We understand the process with you And so we are, that's why we turn to the city of Liberty Lake. Plus, we think it just makes sense. The section line that Mr. Hume talked about, and in including this there, I want you to be aware, we are very well aware of the county's stance on the Old Milwaukee right of way. We understand that's not touchable. We would never plan to ask or seek for any way across that right of way. The county has made that very clear to any public agency that it's off limits. So we get it. Please know we're not planning for it and wouldn't ask the county for it. We're just not going to bark up that tree. So anything that we do here, we'll take that into account. We know that. We understand it completely. We also are looking at, you know, could this be a site for both an elementary school and a middle school? You know, we've had success with University High School, Chester Elementary School, and Horizon Middle School, all on the same site. And they really actually play well together. And they create some really good opportunities for kids for cross grade levels. So know that this is about us preparing for the future. It's about us really looking for a partner who has a very what I would call the well-defined process for annexation and rezone. And at the same time, we know that the city of Liberty Lake is going to hold us accountable to all of the processes and meeting the needs of everybody here. We also know that as we move forward, if we build an elementary school or a middle school, we have to go through all of those project reviews, all of those traffic studies, and will be and continue to be community partners as we mitigate all of that. And I would stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments from the council for Superintendent Small? No, I'll just comment, then, you know, the school district has always been a fantastic partner of the cities, and we love working with you guys, and we really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Any more comments from you or Todd at this point? If not, then I'll move us into the public hearing.
No comments from you.
I have none.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right, so dug out my council rules of procedure since we talked about the public hearing process earlier. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 9:21 and just remind people of the rules of order. All comments by proponents, opponents, or other members of the public shall be made from the podium as it stands today. Any individuals making comments shall first give their name and whether or not they are a resident of Liberty Lake. No comment shall be made from any other location. Anyone making out of order comments, this one with a grain of salt, we're looking into legality, shall be subject to removal from the meeting. If you are disabled and require accommodation, please advise the chair, or in this case, it would be through chat to Todd Henderson, our meeting manager. There shall be no demonstrations during or at the conclusion of anyone's presentation. These rules are intended to promote an orderly system of holding a public hearing, giving every person an opportunity to be heard, ensuring that no individual is annoyed or embarrassed by exercising his or her right to speech. Council members shall not reply or respond in any way to testimony provided by speakers at the public hearing except to request specific clarification. So at this point, I will look to Todd and see if we have anybody signing up for testimony at the public hearing. Not at this time. Leave it out there for another moment or so. I think I took up some good time reading my rules here. So hearing and seeing no. Yes.
Steve Peterson, I'd like to make comment to the public hearing.
Go ahead.
I live at 719 North Lancashire, Liberty Lake, and Mayor Council, a notice of the application for annexation was posted on our property at 19501 East Appleway. I wholeheartedly support the annexation of Central Valley School real estate, consisting of the vacated gun club and the surrounding land. The R2 designation supports the community and its schools. Beginning in August, our community will have the new Ridgeline High School, creating a K through 12 educational path within our city borders. I want to thank the Central Valley Schools Superintendent Ben Small and the CV School Board to bring this land into the city of Liberty Lake. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Is there anybody else, Todd?
Yeah, Tim Olson.
Tim Olson, so it looks like you have signed up as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to go ahead and comment that although I support the idea of a middle school and elementary school in this area, I would not support any other type of shenanigans that may come as a result of multifamily housing here. The area is not designed for that, and I would just not, even as a real estate agent, not be in favor of that whatsoever. So I would please ask that the city council consider this as a potential problem going forward, and that we just go ahead and focus on what Ben Small said and have the schools there. Thank you very much.
Very much for your comment. Anybody else, Todd? All right. Sounds like we have had our 2 public comments and there are none pending, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 9:25. Thanks, everybody. All right, so that takes us, we have no resolutions, we have an ordinance, second read. Ann, you're on.
All right, second read ordinance, City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, ordinance number 276. An ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending City of Liberty Lake sign code regulations contained in City Development Code.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, make a motion to approve ordinance number 276.
Moved and seconded.
Clarification,
Yes.
is there a public comment on the second?
I'll get to that, yeah, I missed it. Lisa, I was gonna ask you if you had anything further to present than what we've already seen?
Not unless you have any questions.
Any questions on what we've seen from Lisa? Okay, so before we move to the vote, I will open up for public comment on ordinance 276 for the sign code amendments. Todd, let me know if there's anybody who wants to speak. I'll give people just another few short moments here to, like I said, if you want to comment, please send a chat to Todd Henderson, who is managing the meeting. Hearing none, so we have no public comment. So if there's no further questions or discussion from the council, I'll go ahead and take a vote. We'll take a hand vote so we can keep track of that. So all in favor of ordinance 276, please raise your hand. 2, 4, 5. And Councilmember Severs, are you up or down?
Up.
Okay, we have 6 out of 6. Approval of ordinance 276 is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, so we've got no emergency ordinances tonight, and next we have introduction of upcoming agenda items.
Mayor, the list is long, but I will go quickly. I want to start by saying is, I'm going to have a conversation with Annie about community engagement as a workshop on the 15th. And I did get a text back from the library board that they may be moving their presentation. So that's kind of fluid right now, but I'll keep you informed as to how the workshops materialize. Then moving on to business, award a contract for phone services to Patera, approve an agreement with an artist related to a statue. That will be a recommendation from the Parks and Arts Commission. Award a contract for the frontage improvements on public works yards that Ben mentioned. Approve a concrete on-call agreement so that when we need concrete poured around town, we can do it on an on-call basis. Also approve a general contractor's on-call agreement. These are for emergencies that come up so that we can respond quickly. Approve heavy equipment leases for 4 vehicles. We have rented vehicles in the past to do snow removal, and we have found that it works very well. And so we now are going to be renewing the leases and getting some new equipment for snow removal. And I do want to mention that these equipment do double duty. In the winter, they take care of snow, but in the summer and the fall, they provide services throughout our city, our parks, and our roads. We have potentially a development agreement on the 4th leg of the traffic signal at Legacy Ridge. We have a public hearing on the 6-year transportation improvement plan. We have a resolution to adopt the 6-year transportation improvement plan, and Lisa will be going over that in more detail. And then finally, we have a first read ordinance amending the city's comprehensive solid waste management plan.
It's a lot.
It's gonna be a long meeting.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, just don't use that word, a long meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't-
That's quite all right. I'd like to add this addition, based on Councilman Woodruff's comment tonight, she's resigning her position, and the last meeting will be the 15th. I recommend we put on the agenda for council consideration to discuss how we move forward with filling that position.
Yeah,
I don't see that as a long discussion. You know, we've been through this recently, so.
agreed. It is a little bit different of a situation since Holly has filed to retain her position at the upcoming general election. So there are some nuances that we'll have the city attorney go through, and council can decide when to open that up and what the process will be. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so if there's no other additional upcoming agenda items, we'll open up for additional citizen comments. Anything on anybody's mind they'd like to share or ask about? Okay, not seeing any. If we don't have any other business, we'll look around the table here. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. See everybody on the 15th.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, guys.